by the say-so of a particular minister without recourse to the lay-down procedure. We also look at the matter of gold for oil. It's been in the news this week. Fuel prices have been seeing a downward, trend, or they've been reducing. And if you recall, in November, December, a liter of super or petrol was going for about 23 Ghana cedis. Now we are hovering around 12 or 13 cedis. That's quite a whopping reduction. Many people in government, especially in the quarters of the vice president, are attributing that or the recent reductions to the gold for oil program. Indeed, how many metric tons of gold for oil, maybe crude, have come into Ghana to occasion this dramatic reduction? Others have said, no, gold for oil hasn't done anything. Indeed, it's just a drop in the ocean. There are other bigger factors that are influencing the downward trend in the price of fuel. For example, the world market prices of the commodity have been reducing, and the stability or the seeming stability of the cedi is also one of the reasons why the fuel is seeing the trend it is currently seeing. So it has absolutely nothing to do with gold for oil. The vice president, after his program, having suffered that difficulty from Kennedy Japan, appeared this week to justify the program. That's why he said that the downward trend could largely be attributed to the gold for oil. We will subject that to some analysis a bit later on in the show. This is a big issue, your home of incisive analysis and riveting conversation. We will take a quick break, return, introduce my guest, and then we'll get a discussion underway. Once again, you are welcome. Hi, you're welcome back to The Big Issue. We are on 97.3 City FM. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. You can always join the discussion via WhatsApp on 020-444-7033, and we'll be happy to read your comments to the rest of the world. This morning, we are dealing with two matters that have come up in the week. The first one is a road toll attempts by government to reintroduce a road toll. Do you think the road toll should come back? Indeed, the minister said that a lot of the toll booths were going to be remodeled into rest stops along the roads. What happened to that? Now we are reconsidering bringing back the road tolls. What changes do you want to see? Is the collection process not too cumbersome? Shouldn't they introduce an electronic system where when you get there, you show your card and then the money or amount or the toll is deducted from the card, as we've seen in other European countries or even in some countries in Africa? How should it be? How much will you pay, etc.? We'll look at all of that today. We also have the discussion on the gold for oil. What is the impact? What has been the impact of the gold for oil program after 2 months or so of operating this? The vice president is attributing a lot happening in the space to the gold for oil program. People have also said, no, hang on, you can't do that. Other factors are responsible. The world market prices of the commodity is reducing, and the seeming stability of the cedi is actually one of the key reasons why we have seen the price of fuel at where it is, and it has absolutely nothing to do with gold for oil. They even think that gold for oil may in the long run cost the country and cost the consumer. We'll subject that to some analysis later in the show. So I will introduce my guest soon, but just to give you some updates of what has been happening, the government has revised the schedules of the fees and charges. Miscellaneous Provisions Act 2022, Act 1080. The amendments are in line with government's intention to restart collecting tolls on some roads, pending the completion of the steps to identify the roads and highways to be affected by the reintroduction of the tolls. To this end, the Finance Ministry has commenced the procedures necessary to determine the toll foundation rates while the Ministry of Roads and Highways considers them. The reinstatement of the road toll was one of the revenue-generating plans in the 2023 budget that the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, submitted to Parliament last November. Payment of tolls on public roads ceased in November 2021 as part of policy measures announced by the government in the 2022 budget, a move that displaced several road toll collectors. There has been mixed reactions to the decision by government to reintroduce and increase the cost of the tolls or the rate. The GPRTU chairman, of the roads, or the GPRTU and the chairman of the Roads Committee, Roads and Transport Committee of Parliament, have both been speaking on the issue. So let's listen to them.
We are most people who use the road. I'm not saying those who have private cars doesn't use the road, but we are stakeholders. And we felt we should be consulted for our input because we have some grievances about how many times we've been paying on using the roads. For example, if you ply your route from Kaswa to Accra or from Aburi to Accra, the shortest distances, and you have to maybe have about 5 trips, meaning you pay 10 times. You can imagine it, and this doesn't come from the sales you are going to make to the car owner or whichever transport organization you belong to. But it's going to come from the pocket of the driver. So this and some other things are the reason why we thought we should be consulted for our input. In any case, the price itself is not anything to be that we will be crying about it.
If the government wants
All right, so we've had some bit of a hitch there, but of course, that generally is a story, the toll reintroduction, and some views that some stakeholders have been expressing on the matter. Generally, I do not get the impression that people do not want the tolls back, but people think that there should be modifications on the collection mode, and that they need to see what the tolls as collected are used for. We need to see the patching of our potholes on our roads. We need to see the construction of more roads, etc. We'll look at all of that. So to help us with the discussion this morning, a number of very good people. We have Dennis Miracles Aboaju, who's a member of the government communication team. Dennis, you're welcome to the program. We have Engineer Abdullahi Mahama, roads and buildings consultant. We have Franklin Kujo, President, Imani Africa. We also have the Honorable Isaac J. Benson, who is MP for Wassa East and a former Deputy Minister for Roads in the SWAL NDC administration. Gentlemen, you are welcome to the program.
Thank you, Solomon.
All right, Dennis, I'll start off with you.
Okay.
Can you confirm to us whether government indeed is started making moves for a reintroduction of the road tolls? Indeed, the minister hinted in the budget statement that as part of revenue mobilization programs, the road tolls were going to come back. But can you confirm to us that those moves have started? We have seen the revised schedule of the Fees and Charges Act. Some people in the government have said this is not it. But let's understand what's happening briefly.
Solomon, a very warm good morning to all your viewers. Of course, the weather is a bit wet, so I guess we probably have a lot of people at home right now, watching us. The 2023 budget that the Minister of Finance presented in the House of Parliament, which was debated and approved, actually had the reintroduction of the road tolls. And I'm sure when you pick the budget and read, it's clearly indicated there that there are some plans to reintroduce the road tolls. For me, I think that what is important or key in all of this conversation is the fact that the consensus around the reintroduction of the road toll is quite strong. As a matter of fact, if you recall, even at the announcement of the zero rating of the road tolls, a lot of people from both sides were of the view that in spite of all the other
expected revenue inflows that we're working towards, road tolls should remain. But of course, running an economy and running a country is a continuous process. And at every point in time, depending on the situation on the ground, the government may take several decisions to shape the progress of the state. If you recall correctly, there are a few things that the finance minister at that point stated at the time of announcing the suspension or the zero rating of the road tolls, and it included issues of vehicular traffic. And I just want to be quite specific. So the finance minister mentioned the fact that vehicular traffic lengthened travel time, which are impacting negatively on our productivity, congestion at the tolling booth, and then creation of inconveniences for travelers at these spots. For me, these are not reasons that we can downplay. These are critical reasons that have effect even on the general economy, depending on how you analyze and look at it. But if you put it in a bigger view, you'd realize that ultimately these things have impact on our economy. So the objective then was to try and reduce the stress for the citizens at this point. And some economic analysis was also done in terms of what we're generating. Of course, if we are going through all these stress to be able to get home at tolling points, and we are raising billions of cedis, then it could sort of commiserate for the stress that we have to go through. But it made sound judgment and sense at the time of the announcement that we were expecting at that time some other inflows, especially from the e-levy, which was going to bring in excess of about 4 billion thereabout.
Your guy says 6-7 billion.
Yeah, I mean, we've done some reviews over the period. So if we're expecting 6 billion cedis from e-levy, and your citizens have to go through all these inconveniences which the finance minister mentioned, to be able to raise 70 million to 76 million Ghana cedis, then of course, I don't think anybody would have an issue if this inconvenience has been taken out. But we all acknowledge and agree that the e-levy hasn't matured yet. The e-levy has not been able to realize the targets and objectives that we set for ourselves. And yet, looking at even the current situation we find ourselves, we still must be able to raise revenues to be able to deliver some of these critical developmental infrastructure for the state. And so I am of the view that if government is reintroducing it, is a good thing. Eventually, if we get to the point where we feel that there are other revenue heads that would give us even more than what we are getting from there, and so we could reduce the stress on the citizenry there, then we could look at it. But again, Selo, revenue heads are introduced and removed at various times. I am sure we would agree that this is not the first time we are seeing taxes removed and being introduced either in the same form or different forms. It happens. And for every budget and for every period, you look at what it is that you want to achieve, you look at the entire macroeconomy before you now look at how you'll be able to raise the resources to be able to deliver. And so if we find ourselves in the situation where we're expecting to be able to raise in excess of some 4 to 6 billion in e-levy, which would render the 70 million in the face of the challenges and difficulties we go through almost insignificant. Then, of course, we could say that let's allow the citizens to have some free flow at the toll booth and then try and make room for the 76 million or so from the e-levy. You remember that if you pick the e-levy act, specifically in there is a construction of roads, which is basically the key thing that the 76 million we raise from the road tolls are supposed to do. And so if we are going to raise so much from here to be able to deliver the same resource, the same development for the people, and then we can take this stress off us, then so be it. So it is not to say that road tolling would never bring stress or inconvenience, even if it's 30 seconds you are spending there. But it is to say that comparing what it is that you are realizing from there against what you have to go through, then if we can get the same value from elsewhere, let's do it from there so that we can save us the struggle. But at this point, clearly, the e-levy is unable to, as it stands now, deliver that to us. Even though some of us are of the view that eventually it's going to peak and we are going to get there, we cannot run away from the fact that all the commentary, the challenges, the negativities, the back and forth around the introduction of e-levy obviously affected its acceptability and all of that. And so along the line, when people begin to realize that these things, we need to do them to be able to also even have our own personal activities done, then it would increase and improve on the objectives we have with e-levy.
Yes, the way the road tolls were cancelled, of course, the minister had said that in the budget that because of e-levy and other things, road tolls should be cancelled. But it appeared that somebody just woke up one morning and made the announcement that the road tolls cancelled. We do not think, or people do not think generally, that the processes were gone through well. Proper thinking went through it, and so it just had to be cancelled. Now, we did not know what we were to do with the guys who were working in the toll booths. They had to go on demonstration, they had to do this and that and that. Now, we ended up paying them for not doing any work. At some time, I think we stopped. Now they are home. They don't know what to do. They've been issuing press statements every now and then. The whole process appeared very clumsy. Would you admit that that process could have been handled better so that the transitioning, would have been better than we've seen or we saw?
Better is always a good thing. Better is always an improvement over good. And so for me, I'd never debate or argue with anybody that make recommendations for better. That's what we're all striving for. And for every action or inaction, there would always be a way to get it done in a more improved way. And so I don't think there's something that we need to debate over. The key thing is that it's irrespective of how it was going to be done, there has been a policy that it was going to be zero rated. And so eventually it was going to be out of the way. But of course, in getting that done, we could have done it better. I don't think...
I say so because we are building a country. Tomorrow we may want to cancel some other tax and the same approach will be used and we'll come back to the same point. So yes, this error or difficulty, no matter how you see it, has happened already. We are trying to correct it. But what should we be learning from how it was done and the consequences that have followed?
So I don't think the key descriptions here will be error and difficulties. Like you said, we are building. We are in progress. It cannot be an error. It could have been better. And for me, better is not to say that good is bad. You understand? Better only says that good could have been done in a more, improved way. So it is not an issue of error. It is an issue of the expression of views that how it was handled could have been handled in another way, which could have made it much more improved over how it was done. So the issue is not about an error. There was no error in taking a decision that, listen, the loss in productivity, the loss in time, the stress, the economic losses at toll booth, which is still present anyway, against how much we are realizing, is not commensurate at that point in time. I don't think it's an error. It is a matter of fact that today, if you get to the Kasua toll booth, the traffic flow is improved over how it was. Is that not the case? Exactly. And the decision to remove the toll booth was not to say that the 17 million was not needed by the state. The decision was to say that if we could raise the 70 billion from e-levy and from here, then why do we
did not deserve going through
people did not deserve going through that. So
stress.
I think that it is not an error. We must understand that. We are now coming back to it because the objectives and the targets we set for ourselves to be able to raise the 70 million from elsewhere has not materialized yet. What it means is that we need to be able to get that 70 billion. An unfortunate situation, but a reality. And so, whilst we come back to it, we need to continuously work on the other areas that we think we can improve on. And I am of the view that in the introduction or the reintroduction of the toll booth, we must see some improvement. We must see some introduction of technology.
We'll come to what we must see in the new phase.
So I don't want us to be I've heard a lot of people make those comments. Oh, they are not consistent. Oh, they are indecisive. That is not the case. Every economic policy and every budget has the budget's objective, the key things you want to achieve. You do that before you look at where you get the money from and how much money you need. Every year, government upon government can suspend and reintroduce taxes based on what it is
the error
what
of
is that
difficulty.
they want to achieve.
Many have alluded to is that they say a bird in hand is worth two in the bush. You were seeking to pass e-levy. E-levy was obviously going to have difficulties because right from the onset, right from the day of the budget, the minority labeled it a Momo tax. I mean, and all indications show that it was going to be difficult. Now you go ahead and cancel a revenue measure that was bringing in some money, 70 billion or so, without having secured the other one. And it was always going to be difficult. So for over 6 months, we didn't have e-levy, and we didn't have road tolls. So the state was losing money. That money, 6 months, maybe half of that is about 30 million or 35 million. It could have been used for something. That is where people think that the government rushed in cancelling it and didn't think through it properly. And in fact, the way it happened, it appeared as if somebody just woke up and said, okay, let's cancel it now. The budget has said it. The budget had been approved or passed, but there could have been a more coordinated way of doing it so that the state doesn't lose money. Cracks don't occur for the state to lose money. But the state did lose money because the e-levy didn't work well. It didn't get passed on time. So for a period of 6 months, we did not have road tolls. We did not have e-levy too. That's the difficulty I'm talking about.
His Excellency Afari Donko, one of the senior statesmen in this country, always says that with the benefit of hindsight, everybody is wise. He says that to me all the time, that with the benefit of hindsight, everybody is wise. Like I said, in spite of the processes that was going to be used, e-levy, toll booth had been zero rated. So it could have been the same day, 2 days after, 3 days after, a month, 6 months, it was going to be zero rated, whatever it is. And ultimately,
without a replacement.
And ultimately, e-levy as it is now still wouldn't have given us the returns we need, and toll booth will be out. So I will not debate with you or debate with anybody that says that the processes towards the removal of the toll booth could have been done better. No debate about that. Because anybody that debates about better over good really doesn't seek to improve. So there's no question or debate about that. But we cannot use words like error, use words like difficulties. Because some of these things, you're only wiser because you are seeing the aftermath. What if the same day that it was cancelled, we did not have the situation we had with e-levy? It could have been that in spite of all the poo-pooing and all the negativity that the opposition carved around the e-levy, we still would have realized the target. I don't think we'll be here discussing whether it was cancelled the day before or the same day or 3 days after. So the processes could have been handled better. It could have been done in a more improved way than it was done earlier, but it was not an error. Now you are seeing it as an error because you have the benefit of hindsight. And like Afari Donko says, we are all wiser with the benefit of hindsight. But the decision was with all good intent and purpose. It was to ensure that you and I and all the people, thousands of today, you know, a place like Kaswa is a dormitory for Greater Accra. You know, lots of people live there. Now Kaswa is extended all the way towards Widiba, and people are rushing towards the area. Compare the time when the toll booth was there to today. You will see a vast improvement in terms of travel time, in terms of stress. It has a lot of economic implications that you cannot value immediately. Okay? People's medical conditions, people's cost of fuel, people's cost of maintenance, and all of these things. So the government's intention to remove toll booth was with all good intent and purpose. And if you remember the commentaries and the debate and the commentary by the finance minister afterwards was quite clear that we are not saying road tolls in Ghana has been cancelled, and road tolls was not cancelled by the budget. It was only zero rated. That is why the finance minister chose his words carefully. You know, so when I heard people say, no, the thing is law and must, he didn't say cancel. So he hasn't really cancelled any law unilaterally. He said zero rated.
But the law came with a rate.
Yeah, but you can always make you can always set the rates. That's why he said zero rated.
You can set the rate on your own.
No, but it was in the budget.
Yes.
And Parliament debated it. So it was up to Parliament to say we don't want a zero rate. We want a 1+1
So for you,
or a 2+1.
so to the extent that it was in the budget and the budget was passed, everything.
They
went
debated
through.
it. And the key things, you see, you are a lawyer, and I'm sure so you understand what I'm saying, that he didn't say cancelled. So he hasn't really repealed or cancelled any law. He said 0 rated. So the law is still there, but you pay 0. Once you pay 0, we don't have to come and put a human being there to take your 0 amount. You understand what I'm saying? So that is what it means. So we can always debate the processes and look at it and everything. But the fact is that toll booth has not been cancelled in Ghana. Toll booth have only been 0 rated. And if you look at the government is even looking at getting into PPP arrangements with private sector to build certain roads which would be tolled. And this time, ensure that the roads are opened. And those were some of the commentaries that the finance ministry put out after the reading of the budget. Now listen, can we go back and try to improve on even the areas where the road tolls are, and try to improve on the systems for the road toll collection, so that eventually when we reintroduce road tolls, we would not have people go through the inconveniences and the challenges that we've had. And I think those are very important things that we need to pay attention to. And help the conversation and the discourse. So this whole conversation, the issue that government is inconsistent, the government didn't know what he was doing, the government, it is false. Government knew exactly what he was doing. Government's thinking is that we raised 70 to 76 million Ghana cedis in road tolls. As a result of that, we have people spending hours to be able to get home and come to work. It has effect on time spent in travel. It has effect on productivity. It has effect on people's medical conditions. As a result, if we can have a more convenient way to raise the same 70 million, to be able to deliver the same road infrastructure that the toll booth is supposed to deliver, then let's save the citizenry that stress. So that whilst we are doing this, we would see ways and means to improve on the infrastructure of the road. You see, the government's intention was that once we raise more from e-levy, we improve on the road infrastructure, then tolling will be a bit more convenient. For me, it was a very smart approach, except that you always set that target, you always put it in place the processes, but you do not always necessarily meet your targets.
Very well.
And in this case, what government you can call a failure on our part, which we cannot run away from, in this case is that we are unable to realize the full potential of the e-levy, which was going to help us improve on the road infrastructure.
Which was your own making, though, because
no, it is not.
You did
cannot
not
say,
listen.
no,
People said a lot of things. You did not listen.
No, you cannot say that. You cannot say that. It is the making of so many other people, so many other interest groups. If there is going to be an introduction of taxes, and you have people who know better and understand these things better, set out to set people against.
I don't want us to go to the whole e-levy discussion.
No,
but
you made a point.
The whole e-levy discussion.
You made a point.
The whole e-levy thing, many people think that government did not approach it.
Has there ever been a tax introduction in this country that many people have come out to hail it?
For example, I mean, nobody will hail taxes.
Exactly.
But nobody will hail taxes. But we always impose taxes because the approaches are different. When you are going to tax a particular area, and people think that this is not the way to do it. In fact, your own vice president is on record to have said that he did not think taxing the telco sector or the MOMO or the electronic transaction sector was a good thing to do. Until date, he has not come back to reserve from that commentary or to even support the e-levy in a manner that he has done for other policies, which means that even in government, there are deep divisions regarding how that tax was introduced. So I'm just making a point that, for example, a lot of the consultations you did was after the fact, after the policy had suffered difficulties. Then you now went to the people. But the seed had already been sown. So you were bound to fail. You understand? People said, for example, that the rates were too high for that sector. Reduce it to 1% or lower. Nothing was done. Now the thing failed. You have come back to it. We could have avoided all of that.
Whatever it is, whatever all the issues around e-levy is, the unachievement of the e-levy target cannot be placed on the doorstep of only one sector.
No, but the buck must stop somewhere.
Fair enough. But it cannot stop at only one place. Because all of us have a role to play. All of us have a role to play to ensure that revenue generation is improved at some point in time. So you can at this point compartmentalize it or segment it and apportion percentages of blame. If you can do that, fair enough. But you cannot put everything on one group or one sect of people, because others were also advocating for it. There are other citizens who also thought that, listen, all over the world, places that we are aspiring to be like, people who have improved and want to be like them, this is how they generate their revenue, this is how they raise their revenue. And even if you compare our rates at the time to theirs, ours is still lower than that. So there are people who also supported it. There are people who advocated for it. But there are also people who made deliberate effort to ensure that it failed. But I do not even think that. I do not even think that. I do not even hold the view that e-levy in its entirety is going to fail. I think that it hasn't only reached its maturity stage yet. You know, usually all taxes.
Yes, or maybe your initial projections over ambitious.
Exactly. Maybe your projections over the time, you know, travel for the tax was over ambitious and all of that.
And that's a problem.
I can tell you that we'll be here. We'll come back to this table to have conversations in the next 3, 4, 5 years. And e-levy is going to be the mainstay of this country.
No, that's
because
fair.
where we are going,
because the sector is growing.
Because where we are going, yes, where we are going. Where we are
the
going,
same way we've seen of that.
Exactly. Eventually, e-levy is going to be the mainstay. So we need to look into the future. We need to appreciate the fact that some of these things are futuristic, but we can always admit the challenges with our projections. We can always admit the challenges with our timelines. I mean, we could have probably projected that, okay, you are expected about 6 billion in e-levy, but you cannot make it all in 2022. You are likely to make 600 million in 2022, for which reason maybe let's allow the road tolls to stay for another 2 or 3 years, by which time e-levy would have matured, and then we can go back to it. My explanation this morning on the issue of the toll booth, is that the intention was good. The idea was to reduce the stress on the citizenry, go and raise more money from e-levy, bring the e-levy money to expand and improve on the road infrastructure. That will lead to the creation of a convenient collection of the tolls. Then we can continue to toll the citizenry. Look at the toll booth at Ebri, Salom. When you get there, the road is like this.
Yes.
Sometimes the traffic comes all the way.
I am telling you,
the vendors, the bread sellers, you know, towards the toll, towards the booth, it gets into a single lane. When you are going, it's a double lane. Towards the booth, it gets into a single lane.
So the positioning of that itself is a problem.
So you realize that the traffic can come all the way to the special ice place, especially on Saturdays. So if I wake up on Saturday and I want to go for a funeral in Koforidua, I'm spending 3 hours just to be able to cross the toll booth. And yet I have to come back and come and prepare for my Sunday church service and wake up again and go to work on Monday. These are the sort of stress that the government wanted to remove. And in doing that, government didn't take its eye off toll booth. And that is why I insist, and I want it to be corrected today, that government never cancelled toll booth. In fact, government did not even suspend toll booth. If you are going to read the actual meanings of these things, then you understand what I am saying. Government said toll booth, or how do you say, tolls at toll booth are 0. It is not the same thing as cancelled. It is not the same thing as suspended. It is only to say that you will pay, but you are paying 0. So when you get there, because you are paying 0, nobody will be there. I think these key words have legal implications. That is my view. They have legal implications. And there's a reason why the government did that. That is why beyond the reading of the budget, the finance ministry came out to give explanations to the idea behind the e-levying, which in the e-levy act had captured categorically that a certain percentage of the e-levy was going to go into road expansion, which was what the road toll was doing. And the idea was that once e-levy is able to dualize or create 4 lanes for the Tema motorway, then you can have a much more improved way of setting these toll booths to collect money without people going through the stress. The citizen was the objective, the citizen was the focus. The convenience, the peace of mind of the citizen was the focus of the government. And we can't gloss over that.
Very well. So this is the big issue. I'm having a conversation with Dennis Abuaji, also known as Miracles. He will explain to us why Miracles, later. He's a member of the government communication team. We're looking at the issue about the return of the road tolls. Government is said that they are thinking of bringing that back. They are consulting. Their doors are open, at least from the finance ministry and the roads ministry. They want to bring that back. My other guest, Franklin Cudjoe, Isaac J. Mensah, former deputy minister for roads, engineer Abdullahi Mahama, roads and buildings consultant. Engineer Mahama, let me come to you now. Yes, the road tolls were cancelled. A lot of people were happy because there appeared to be some free flow. And of course, 50 pesos, 1 cedi, 2 cedi, you did not have to pay again. And once money doesn't leave your pocket, everybody's happy. Now we're hearing that it's going to come back. What's your first thoughts about the supposed reintroduction of the road to, at least the commencement of discussions towards the reintroduction?
Well, I'll say a good morning to your cherished viewers and listeners. The cancellation or the suspension or the zero-rated, all the words that are trying to be used to not to be at fault, brought the operation of the toll to a halt. In fact, the Minister of Finance, after reading the budget, and the next dawn, we had the announcement or the statement from the Ministry of Roads and Highways, whether suspending, cancelling, or whatever, it was suspended. And in fact, just a day after, I was on one of the stations and actually condemned or expressed my dissatisfaction about the cancellation of the toll. Why? Because you could have your e-levy still operational, and you could still have your toll operational. What you could have done was not the unexplainable excuses or reasons given for the suspension or zero rating of the toll, because the issues that were raised as part of the reasons why the toll was cancelled was not justified technically when it comes to infrastructure development. You cannot situate a toll at Ayimensa, the road that I did, my first road after school. You cannot just come and put a wooden kiosk at the Ayimensa junction there and expect to be taking the toll and not to expect a traffic on that stretch of the road. Same applies to the one on Dodua Road. When you get to Chebi Budia in the AC region, there are these same wooden structures sitting in the middle of the road. Motorway does not give you any significant delay when you are on the motorway, because it is more or less about 80% sound in terms of considerations for construction of a toll. Wager had its challenges because of the restriction or the availability of lands for either proper engineering or reconstruction of the toll. Ironically, Amasaman, Pokwase, or Fanko has one of the largest, or in terms of volume of traffic. If you take the motorway, which has about 93,000 vehicles per day, the second one has to do with the Amasaman stretch. Now, this Amasaman stretch has a toll booth about 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers away from the Amasaman, that's at Obiman. Strangely, that toll, which is the second largest used road in Ghana, never experiences any delay at the toll location. It means, per what I've been saying over the years, that is one of the properly engineered toll with vast land to widen the carriageways of all the vehicles that are approaching the toll. There are 4 bays, and after paying, you have another 1 kilometer or so to connect to the toll carriageway to exit the toll area. So the government, who is the policy implementer, we are just the professionals who make submissions and proposals for maybe onward intake by government for policy, effective policy implementations. So if you have the toll and you allow hawkers to be selling there and then, after paying the toll, let's say the wager one, and you're about to exit, and you have a bread seller, you have a yogurt seller, you have somebody who's selling whatever, all those kind of things they are selling there, PK, everything, and they slow the transition of vehicles after the toll. Others are even before the toll. These bottlenecks, when they are actually taken off, you would have an improved
flow
travel time in that area. Now, let me be quick to say that I've stated time with that number at the wager stretch that when you have a certain chaos like we have there, the only proper thing to do with the engineering team is to segment the toll by sending one of the two away from each other. So one carriageway takes care of the land and all the vehicles which are pushing and exiting. Then the other carriageway is about 1 kilometer away because of availability of land, so that you can actually square and get a lot of approaches for those who are coming to the toll and those who are exiting the toll. These are all engineering. Until we are made to actually bring all those into practice, and government gives us the opportunity to actually run these operations, we'll be where we are. But with the introduction of the toll, I 110% support the introduction. In fact, your own station conducted a survey. I don't know whether you still remember. After the toll was cancelled, you ran some survey with a lot of the motor drivers on our roads, and it was about 80% who were surprised about the cancellation. And this same 80% or so, I don't have the exact figure, I'm just giving you an approximation of what you guys did. They were surprised that the toll was not even increased. The about 20% said that it was not good to have cancelled it, but they wanted to maintain the amount, the fees being charged. I have made a proposal over the course of the week on all the stations I've actually given them audience that if we want to operationalize the toll, nothing has changed from the previous reasons why it was cancelled. And so Cote d'Ivoire is our neighbor on the western side of our country. Burkina Faso is on the north. Let me jump Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, Benin, and go to Nigeria, at least to have one of the English-speaking countries as part of the consideration of that, unless I'm doing. The average toll that their saloon cars, where we want to move from 50 pesos to 1 cedi, is 5 Ghana cedis per a saloon car. That is 90% less than what we are doing. So I've been championing this call that if government feels like people are going to politicize it, leave the discussion in the hands of the technocrats who have no bias with any party. Let us justify and give extensive education so that when they sit down with Ghanaians, they may buy into the idea. We cannot be doing 50 pesos, 1 cedi, and 2 cedi, 30 pesos, or 50 pesos, and expect that we can do any roads. The 72 million Ghana cedis that we are realizing at the end of the year. Let me give you 2 instances. The first one, the minister had been on air complaining that the people who have been assigned to collect the toll for us are not doing proper accounting in terms of how much they realize at the end of the time or the duration. And that, in his mind, about 60 or 70% is being realized. Once you're able to identify this as a challenge, why don't you address it with the people? You have the power to sack or to appoint. So if you think that Selom is the one in charge and he is not actually, sending whatever is supposed to be realized at the end of the month adequately, and there are shortfalls, you have to deal with it. So we need more transparency on that side. Number 2, 72 million Ghana cedis, which is equivalent to about $6 million, can do under 3 kilometers of a road. 3 means from City FM, from Tesano to like Circle, it's even longer than what that 72 million Ghana cedis.
The whole country would have realized in road tolls could just do 3 kilometers.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. $6 million. So let's say we are doing dual road now, asphalt binder concrete, or like let's say 37 towards airport. So it's about 3 lane or 4 lane. That money cannot do 2 kilometers. Just 2 kilometers, like from 37 to going to Pebia. It can't do it. So we are of the view that we need to significantly increase the toll from the proposed 88% to about 300% minimum. That is my proposal, and I'm saying that over the week, I've had people who are supporting and those who are lambasting, but I'm just being an objective person. I have vehicles that also pay. So I'm not speaking maybe that I'm exempted from paying the toll. If we want to be citizens of the country, we need to be able to appraise the taxes that we are receiving from the toll. Because if Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, and Nigeria are doing 5 Ghana cedis for a saloon car, and you are doing 50 pesos, where are you heading to?
I see.
Before you do all this, there's a problem with the traffic. Elsewhere, people, see, when you get to the toll and you finish paying, and you just drive past the toll, there's this flashlights that you actually witness facing your car, the gantries. Now, these flashlights are webcams. Other countries don't have to put physically people sitting there and collecting the toll. When we are done with our digitization, this national identification and whatever, and we synchronize our data with the DVLA, where everybody's vehicle has to be registered, and we know owners of vehicles if you want to do your checks. When I finish and this is synchronized, and the government actually does their own policy in linking the toll to a certain how you pay in terms of maybe by Momo or by some transactions or by an app. When I go past the toll without necessarily stopping there, the signal picks and I get a prompt on my phone. Within a week or two, if that's what I've been given, I have to go and pay my money, I pay. If you don't do that, you are given a grace period. Because your national identification is linked to all your documents, including your accounts. At a point, if you've gone beyond the grace period, you fail to do any transaction because the flash, the venue where you are going to conduct a transaction or to actually do any transaction, like the bank, it will flag that you are owing X amount of money and you have gone beyond the grace period. So until that payment is done, you may not be able to do that transaction. These are easy things we can do. We need an extensive collaboration with the government to actually put all this on the table for them to do a lot of dialogue. And
I'll take a break soon, but tell me, how much of an engineering issue is it in terms of citing the toll booths and maybe a government policy, finance, etc.? Dennis mentioned the Eburi Road. You also did. You said that was one of the Ayman said that was one of the first routes you did as a young engineer.
2004, 2007.
How much of an input did you have as an engineer on the project in citing the road, the toll booths there, vis-a-vis what government itself had to say? Because I'm sure the engineer said, given the nature of this road, it's too narrow, and given all the factors around, you cannot cite a toll booth here. Maybe government will listen. The Dodowa Road, for example. All of that, how much of an engineering issue is it as it is a government or financial matter? Just briefly before we go for it. Yeah.
Sure. If the Ayman one, for the records, there was no toll. There was no new consideration of a toll. It was like government policy after the road was completed about 7 years ago, and then they brought in the wooden structures to fix it. That's why there's no new proper engineering. Likewise, that of the Dodowa at the entire stretch. So the most important thing is if you actually want to do the normal one we are doing now, the one which is operational, without actually going to that digitization where you have to do the webcam one where the cars will just pass. The first thing you have to consider is availability of land at the approach where you want to situate the toll. If the lands there do not belong to you, government can invoke the compulsory acquisition law and then go into discussion with the people who are within those areas, do the negotiation with them, identify their buildings, mark them a building, measure the buildings, and then you duly compensate them for relocation. Because at any point in time on the road, if government decides to situate a toll booth at a location, because of the availability of land, he needs to be able to create the approaches, the widening of the carriageway, and then when you are finished and the exiting, you may need more land to be able to get about maybe 5, 6, 7 bay. And that would affect people who are rightly staying on their lands. So you can do compensation, discussion, negotiation, and valuation of the lands and the buildings, and pay them and do the relocate, so that you can realize what you want to get at it, so that nobody would actually be staying in the traffic, because you have about 6, 7, 8 lanes from a 2-lane. So the cars get there, they split into the 6 lanes, they pay and they exit. And when they are exiting, they need about another kilometer or more, so that before they get where they are narrowing onto the 2-lane or 1-lane, other cars would have taken shape because of various speed of the vehicle. That is so simple to be done. But government ought to look for the money to do the identification of those houses, negotiation, measurement, valuation, and payment. Then you can relocate those people from wherever you want to situate your toll.
I see. Thanks so much, Engineer Abdullahi Mahama, Roads and Buildings Consultant. He's just made his views known on the matter. We'll take a short break. When we come back, We will continue looking at the matter of the toll booths. We'll look at what considerations government or engineers look at before citing a toll booth. Is there a criteria? There are some roads which have no toll booths, others have toll booths. What's the criteria really? Engineer Mahama will help us. Dennis Abuadi is also here. Franklin Kujo will help us, and the former Deputy Minister for Roads, Isaac J. Mensah, will also assist us. This is a big issue. You can join a discussion with your messages on WhatsApp on 020-444-7033. This is the home of incisive analysis and riveting conversation. This is the big issue. We'll be right back.
City TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and StarTimes box. City TV, it's your world. City TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and StarTimes box. City TV, it's your world. City TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and StarTimes box. City TV, it's your world.
Ghana, the land of vast minerals and rich natural resources. Ghana, the country with a fine blend of heterogeneous cultural expressions worth celebrating. The month of March is the Heritage Month on City, and we will be celebrating it in grand style with the theme Make It Ghana. This is of all things Guinean, and City TV and City FM will be marking it with a month-long celebration of our heritage with a myriad of exciting activities just for you. We will be bringing you the Heritage Month on-air series with a focus on stories that reflect the diversified culture of our people, food, places, and music from the 1st to the 31st of March. Watch out for the Heritage Caravan Diaries and moments as we embark on a journey full of fun, education, information, wonderful memories, and great bonding moments with the Heritage Caravan from the 4th to the 11th of March. To crown the Heritage Month celebration, we will treat ourselves to delectable, authentic Ghanaian cuisine from the northern, middle, and southern zones of the country that reflect our true cultural diversity with a Back to Your Village food bazaar from the 25th to the 26th of March 2023. Remember,
Yeah, welcome back to the big issue. Big welcome to our TV viewers too. This morning we are looking at two main issues that came up in the week, the matter of the reintroduction of the road tolls. Government has indicated that they want to bring back the road tolls. In principle, it doesn't appear a lot of people are against the reintroduction of the road tolls. What people really are concerned about is the processes, the efficiency of the collection, so that we are sure that the money as collected is used for its intended purpose, and also to ensure that we do not go back to the reason why the road tolls were cancelled, or Dennis says, I should say, zero rated. Have they expanded the routes? Have they increased the toll booths? Have they introduced electronic means of collection? These are the matters really people want to have answers to, so they can decide what to say about the reintroduction of the tolls. With me to do the discussion is Dennis Abuaji, member, Government Communications Team, Engineer Abdullahi Mahama, Roads and Buildings Consultant, Franklin Cudjoe, President Imani Africa, and Isaac J. Mensah, MP, Wasa East, former Deputy Minister for Roads, who will join us pretty shortly. So before the break, Engineer Mahama was making a point about what can happen so the collection is not as cumbersome as we've seen. He thinks that some parts of the road must be expanded so that, if one narrow road is coming, it should expand at some point where the toll booths will be, so that after the collection, maybe the roads can go back to its original form, so that you don't have a lot of people queuing, which will cause the congestion that people have complained about, for which reason government have had to zero rate or cancel it. Let me go back to Engineer Mahama. I'll speak to Franklin briefly. But what are the considerations? We see some roads which are not tolled, others are tolled. What are the considerations? We hear that some roads will be built and those roads will be tolled specifically. But as we have now, we've not had the PPP arrangement yet. There's a toll booth at Dodowa, on Dodowa stretch. There's a toll booth around Teman. There's a toll booth around the Weja Kaswa area. There are toll booths at various places. What is the consideration? How does government decide, or an engineer advise government that put a toll booth here? Dennis will answer that question too. Put a toll booth here. What are the considerations, really? Because the whole of the N1, apart from Tema, the whole of the N1 proper, all the way to Weja, there is no toll booth. But the N1 appears to be one of the best roads. So if it's about tolling best roads, one of the best roads hasn't been tolled. Right from Adenta all the way to Accra, there is no toll booth. That's a very long road, a very good road too. So what are the considerations really from an engineering point of view?
The engineers do not decide or design the roads to factor the toll.
That's your question. That's your question.
It comes to the policy makers or implementers. When the client, in this case, the Ghana Roads and Highways Authority, which is the Ministry of Roads and Highways, so by extension, the government decide to construct a 10-kilometer stretch of a road, and they tell the contractor or the engineers that we want to place a toll on this stretch of the road. Then the engineers will now look at circumstances that will lead to congestions and delay, and then make a proposal that within stretch A to stretch B, we have this luxury or big land. We think that the next U-turn or this junction, because of the conflict within the area, it will be a chaotic scene at this junction. So let's move to where we think there is a lot of intrusion or approaches of the toll or the location that you want to site. But any other thing that comes from government. Government decide that, okay, the motorway is so much of a long stretch, and this vehicle that are using this area are this and that and that. We need to get money from outside to help to construct the road. But if we don't toll the road, we may not be able to help government in its own taxes they are realizing to actually expand the road sector. Like you rightly said, some of the roads from Adenta through to Medina, all the way to Accra Central, or somebody who will use that road, and when they get to Tekwachi, decide to use the N1 towards Malam. There's no toll until he gets to Weja. And like I said, that's one of the best roads you can find in the country. So a lot of the decision is from the government. And when they give the information to the engineers, they will start to look at the circumstances or the situation within the corridor and then propose, maybe give government maybe 2-3 options, that junction A or junction B or junction C, when you decide the toll there, because of all the bottlenecks that have been eliminated, it will be okay for smooth operations. So that comes from the government.
I see. So Dennis will answer that question in a bit. Franklin, we need to raise more money. I've not seen anybody yet against the reintroduction of the road tolls. What people have questioned is whether we're going to have it in the same format. What are your thoughts really? What suggestions do you have in respect of the reintroduction of the road tolls? That is assuming that you also don't have a problem with its reintroduction per se. Franklin, what do you say?
Well, good morning, my good friends. Look, I've never been against road tolling in any shape or form, especially when it is based on the science that once you use a certain service, you ought to pay, whether it's a public good or a private good. Of course, when it's a private good, as in this case, if it's in a public good, then it means that it also has to be properly accounted for. To be fair, the road toll that we were paying was quite abysmal. In fact, and I do not understand the science or the economics behind the decision to even stop it in the first place. Except, of course, the argument was being made that, well, people keep too long in the queues, and indeed it was affecting productivity, right? So how do you solve it? It's an intelligent design. It's not even intelligent design. These things exist already. And my good friend Dennis knows this already, by the way. He could have just said, look, why don't you just automate the process? And then we get on with our lives, right? So I considered the policy that suggested that we should abrogate we should stop the payment of the tolls. Quite particularly unfounded. I didn't think it was proper advice at all. Now it wants to, they said they want to bring it back. Yes, and we fully support the fact that it should be brought back, and it should be brought back into different form. Of course, many people have said that many people have suggested that it has to be electronically driven. Some have even suggested that you pay. You pay it as part of your roadworthy renewal process, right? So that you pay for the entire year or pay quarterly or whatever it is. So there's there's some consensus around bringing the tolls back anyway, and in a form that is quite appreciative of the times. I'm talking about the rate that we have to charge. And as my good friend engineer has also suggested, it has to be put on roads that actually require it. If you have a narrower road, you don't need that. But even if you have a narrow road and it's automated, why not, right? So, this is a clear case. You don't need, this is a complex discussion. It's quite clear the fact that it was not properly advised, and now they want to bring it back. And so we wish that it should be brought back, but designed in a way that people can feel comfortable using our roads.
It should be brought back, yes, and government has signaled that. But do you think that we've done enough preparation to ensure that its reintroduction does not get us back to the same place we were before it was cancelled? So, for example, Engineer Mahama, from an engineering point of view, has said a few things should happen. Parts of the roads must be expanded, and that will mean that you have to pay off some people, compensate some people, and increase the width of the road so you can put more toll booths there, etc. Have those things been done, and how much of an importance would that be in the collection and in easing the inconveniences in the process?
My good friend engineer is looking at an ideal situation. As a professional, that is what should happen. But the question is, does the government have that much time? There's a government that is facing the double whammy of debt distress, even of debt overhang or debt iceberg, as against not being able to get revenues, and probably now is in a hurry to do so. Would it have the discipline? Has it considered the fact that what the engineer is suggesting is actually the better approach? Would they have time to spend? Do they even have the money to spend on expanding the routes? I think the best option for now would be adopting the electronic means. That appears to be a bit faster, rather than the medium-term to long-term process that engineer suggests, which is obviously the ideal situation. So I'm not sure the government. I don't think I haven't seen any policy paper suggesting that these are the steps that are going to be taken. Except, of course, I think there was a statement to the effect that we'll bring back the road toll and then make sure it eases a lot of burden. But what exactly that burden easing would constitute, we do not know yet. So there must be a lot of things on the table. Certainly, as I said, if they are not able to wait for engineers' professional advice because they don't have the money to do so, then they must as well just ensure that the old ones are probably reconstructed, especially the one that I use daily, the one on the Nsamam Road. It looks really ugly and dirty, extremely ugly and dirty. And I was wondering whether all these leaders who used to ply the roads just couldn't say that, look, even though we are no longer we are no longer paying tolls, at least let's give it a befitting status, right? I mean, it starts with that as well. And I suspect that what they might do is to do some automation and then possibly allow those who still may not have not fully bought into the automated process, use the manual side of things. It is doable, really.
I see. All right. So Dennis, the road tolls will come back. What preparations are we doing? The issue about electronic toll collection has come up. Others have also said that this is Ghana. Sometimes, yes, electronic. There's one booth dedicated to electronic. You get there, it's not working. There's a long queue. You need to get somebody who is not even there to come and open it manually for you to go through because you signed up for the electronic, you don't have coins on you, and a whole lot of things. What assurances can you give to us that if this electronic thing happens, or indeed you will do the electronics on every road? And I'm wondering, can you do that on every road? Because some of the booths are just one. Maybe the Dodowa one is just, we have two. It used to be one, it's two. Is one going to be electronic and one going to be manual? How is it going to be? And what preparations are you doing so far to ensure that the reintroduction is better than we've had in the past?
I think there's very little for me to add to the submissions by Franklin and Engineer Mahama. Honestly speaking, I agree with Franklin. This is not a very complex conversation. It's one that we just have to do a few more things and we'll be able to get things going. The only challenge with Engineer Mahama's submission, which probably I'm sure he doesn't mean that in its entirety, is that the decision on where and how to place the toll booth is not necessarily with the engineer. I think maybe no matter the policy, you would need the engineers to be able to really come to a conclusion as to where to put this. The engineers will have a lot to do.
But that's if government will listen to them.
Oh, come on. Government doesn't construct road. I mean, government doesn't decide where it drains. Government doesn't decide. We
know of many instances where professionals have advised.
Let's be fair to ourselves. We all know our weaknesses and our challenges, but come on. Government is not the reason why this morning, when you get to the golf house, there's a whole dam there because the road was poorly engineered. That's not government.
But that's a different.
No, I'm just telling you. I'm just saying, because that's not government. So government listens to the technical people. It is not true. When you come to the ministry,
that's not government.
You'll be surprised.
Government could call back.
You'll be surprised.
You were to construct this road.
You'll be surprised to know that a lot of the policies that sometimes you'll be pointing fingers at us actually emanate from the technical people who work at the ministries. I mean, when it comes to the ministries, how many political people do you have there? You can't count.
They get direction from the political
persons. But I can tell you that in running a sector, it is probably 80% technical and 20% government. As for politicians and policy initiators who always come up with ideas, it will take the technical people to shape and refine it before it's finally delivered. So it is not as if the policymakers wake up one day and then they start announcing things. It doesn't work like that. I'll be surprised if anybody that is involved in policy can come out and say, oh, no, this one was done. It is not true. It cannot even be done. You cannot cite a road toll without engineers. It is not possible. They are the ones who are actually going to do it. They are the ones who are going to put the designs on paper. They are the ones who are going to put the concepts together. You will tell them, they will go and design the concept. So I just wanted to, set that part quite,
But for example, I think that the point is making. So he mentioned the Dodowari, the Ayi Mensah place, for example, very narrow road.
Yeah.
I'm sure if really engineers were consulted on where to place that toll booth, I'm sure, given their professional background, they would have said something else.
No, he made a point. We should pay
that
attention to
it
the
came
point.
7 years after.
Exactly.
But now
So
somebody decides to put a toll booth
Yeah,
there.
yeah, but
That person should be talking to the engineers on this road. Can we put a toll booth there?
It is not a politician that places the toll booth at Ayi Mensah. The politician will say that.
So the engineer will
The
place it there.
politician will say, yes, I'm telling you that, and I'm very sure about that. We all work in the ministry. The politician will say that, can we toll
this road?
That is what the politician will say. And then they will run the figures. You know, sometimes when you are driving on some roads, you see some guys wearing some green things, taking some notes, doing some. They do a lot of data collection on some of these things before some of the.
So they'll say that on this part of the road, it will be better.
So if
because
I'm a
more people
minister,
pass it.
I go to the office, I call my technical office, can we tow the N1 from Jowulu to Achimota? That would be my thinking. The technical people will now go and sit down and conceptualize it. And then they will come back and say, oh, let's put the toll booth around where the overhead is, the one that crosses to Achimota. It will not be me placing it there. You understand? But I am responsible for it because the decision ultimately will get a sign off from me. But I'm just trying to correct that impression, as if the politician in the ministry will get up one day and say, let's put a toll booth on the Achimota road, and they say, no, it is the technical people who actually conceptualizes the idea. You bring out the idea, they'll put all the concept around it, do all the things, and they say, we should do it this way. So they can't run away from that. So we are building it together. I am not running away from the responsibility, but it is wrong to say that it cannot be correct. Let me put it that way. It cannot be correct today that the engineers
what
are
you're
not
saying is
consulted
suggesting
and
that
they-
once the engineers bring it, the politicians will just take it the way it is.
You know, in discussing policy, there are several angles to it. Okay, you look at the social impacts, the economic impact, the political impacts, the technical. We have a role to play. Okay, you can be a minister of health, but you're not a medical doctor. Okay, so when they are discussing issues around vaccines, there's a limit to which you control the conversations. They are the ones who advise you and tell you, know what, let's buy the vaccine from here because their vaccine contains this, it contains that, because that will not be you. That cannot be you. You understand? So this is the role that technical people play. But at the end of the day, the policy that is churned out is a policy that is coming from the sector by the politicians and the technical people. None of us can absolve ourselves from from the success or the failure of these policies.
And if there's credit, government takes the credit happily.
Of course,
But
because the technical guy is on the ballot paper,
Yes,
so it's fair.
Of course. So if there's problems,
No, we are taking the problem.
Yes.
We are not running away from it. But I'm only correcting the impression. The fact that I am absorbing, as a policymaker, absorb the problems and the challenges doesn't mean that it is true.
But by his leadership, you oversee the ministry.
I am absorbing it, but it doesn't mean that it is true that the policymaker didn't listen to the engineer. I'm not trying to correct a specific position on the matter. So don't get me wrong. Ultimately, you are responsible as the policymaker. But it doesn't mean that it is true that you didn't listen to a technical person. It is false. Because the technical people, they contribute largely to form the policies.
That's a very absolute position to take, because we know that in some instances, technical people, professionals, advise. And of course, the advice is advice. It's not
I
binding.
am telling you that, you see, we
So you are telling me that every advice that technical
No,
people
that is not the case.
Let's hear Frank.
No, let me learn. That is not the case. And that is why I am saying that the policy...
Wait, you guys will come in. So give me a minute. Let him learn.
That is why I'm saying that the policy delivery is by the sector. The sector is made up of the technical people and the politicians. But you cannot try to even... I'll be surprised if anybody makes that point. As if that the policies that are churned out are just policies that are churned out without any input from the technical people.
Nobody has said without any
So you can advise, you recommend, you conceptualize, then we all
but
come
for
back
you to take the advice or not.
I sign it off. It is not an issue of I take the advice or not. I sign it off. I am responsible. Okay, the buck stops with me. But you cannot make a blanket statement that, the technical people are not listened to. That cannot be correct.
But I'm not sure anybody has said that.
No, but
They are
that is
not
the
listened
impression.
to.
That is
But
the impression.
yes. All
And
right.
then let's come to the substantive matter.
Yes,
on the road.
Yes, on this.
On the road.
Let's have some.
On
Let's
the
have a few
road.
interventions from your colleagues. So, Engineer Mahama, a lot has been placed on your table. Franklin, before I come to you, he's disputing your point that
I think Dennis,
engineers don't really have a lot to do.
I think Dennis didn't hear me well.
Okay, maybe I did.
So restate your point then.
Because I don't expect the politician to go and do the construction.
Maybe
of
I
the
didn't.
road. Now that the minister decided to zero it or suspend, it was not a technical person, so it was not an engineer who did that. That's the first thing. So it means that I'm saying that when government say, okay, you are going to construct Adenta to Dodua Road, but this road would be towed. You see, we have what we call the client's expression of interest, what the client intends to do on that road or a building. So let's say we are doing with the road. So when the politician or let's say the policy maker says that this Adenta Dodua Road, I intend to tow the road along the corridor. Based on that information, the engineer now identifies, after he's done his reconnaissance survey, he identifies the ideal place on the corridor where he can suggest for a construction of a toll. Then if he has about 2 or 3 areas on the same stretch, now he avails that information to the policymaker that option A, option B, option C are all suitable locations for the toll because it has met all the considerations. Sometimes the politician has a role to play. Like I said, I don't do the policy, I say the policy implementer has a role to play. So, okay, I think because A, B, and C are all suitable areas for the tool, I think put on B because they all meet the criteria. But the engineer does not just say, because he's going to do a construction of Dodua Road, he will decide to situate a tool when he has not been given in the client's expression of interest or what the client intends to do with that road. If you ask me to go and do a design of a road, I'll do the design of the road, add all the pedestrian walkway, bicycle lanes, all those facilities, what we call the road furniture. But most instances, the roads that we do in the country are determined by, first and foremost, the policymakers' interests. Number 2, that's why sometimes when you finish the design, some of the furnitures are removed from the ideal situation of a design because of the money that is available for a stretch to want to cover. So we don't decide for the location, but once it is part of the initial scope of work, then it gives the engineer the power to now identify on the whole corridor where it is better to place the tool. We don't decide on that one, but we discuss with the engineer, the minister, and then the cabinet in terms of the Ghana Highway Authority, the Ministry of Roads and Highways, and then we put the data in front of them. Like
so that explains why you can construct a long stretch and there are no rest stops, the gutters are not covered, and all of that. So the engineer would do the ideal situation, present it to the one with the PERS or the policymaker, and the policymaker will take out the rest stops and all those, other
so like I was rightly saying about this traffic, those guys who are doing what we call the traffic impact assessment. So before any road is done, you have to look at what is the volume of traffic that you are realizing that are using that road in a day. Where are they ending? So maybe let's say we are talking about Medina to Accra. 10,000 cars are coming from Medina. How many of them go to Legon? How many of them go to Okonglu? How many of those cars go to? So we have guys who are strategically located on those areas and are taking data of all the vehicles that are coming. And then based on the information you have, if you have higher, heavy duty trucks coming, then it means that your pavement design must significantly be changed to be able to accommodate the load you are coming with. So all this is done by the engineer, but the final rest, the decision lies at the doorstep of the engineer. And then secondly, you see that immense road that I constructed. Like I said, I don't expect that if the engineers were told, we were told that we are going to tow the road from Ebri, Ketase, Jankama, all the way to Pantanjaj, where we started the road, we would have made provision at the initial stages to do what you call a proper toll booth design, because no engineer will subscribe to the wooden kiosk which is sitting at Ayimensa as a collection of toll booth area. No engineer will accept that one. But that is somebody above us who has taken the decision, and the engineer cannot say no at a point in time. When the policy makers speak to issues, you will give them your misgivings or science based. When they decide to do that one, you cannot stop the minister from doing the thing. You can't.
There's an important point I have to make.
All right, thanks. Let Franklin come. I'll give you time. So, Franklin, yes, you wanted to make...
I think Denise introduces a subject that we could spend a whole day discussing. I mean, the difference between technocratic advice and then political imperatives. And I think in our history, a lot of the development that we've not had, the optimum development, can be traced to the fact that the technocrats would have given the advice, but unfortunately the
There's
political...
no data to support that.
Oh,
Frankly,
you
there's
wanna
no data to support
Frankly,
that.
there's no data.
Wait, no, frankly, just
There's
make
a
your
lot
point.
of data.
Frankly, there's no data to support that.
Even the current data scheme, right? Weren't many people, including some of us, advising that there was going to be a big hole that...
No. I mean, there's no data to support that.
And then all the things that were supposed to be done. But I get the point when Dennis makes the argument that yes, sometimes the politician signs off even what the technocrats would have advised. But unfortunately, that's not the clearest example is our individual bondholders forum, right? We were tasked to come up with strategies to fiscally readjust the country's finances. We came up with almost 89 billion Ghana cedis. It was signed off by my good friend Sam Akest. But nothing from that suggestion has been implemented or intended to be implemented by the politician, in this case, the minister.
I see. Interesting one. And you have to bring in that. I mean, just to make the point. Very, very useful example. Quite, opportune. All right. So that is you're on the floor, yes. I'll take a break midway.
Franklin is an expert in making sure that he pushes all the things he wants to push. but I mean, this argument, like Franklin said, we could go
the whole day.
over this the whole day, because, and for me, I think it's a long-standing, either to call it misconception or, I don't want to call it untruth, but not wholly truth, that has been put out for a very long time. And I have tried to sort of simplify how things are done. You enter the office as a minister or the politician. When we say policy makers, it is not only the politician and the ministry who is a policy maker. And Engineer Mahama made a point, and he's right. When you go to the roads ministry, there are the engineers who, but there are other policy technical people.
Yes.
They are all part of the policy making. So if Engineer Mahama makes a point from the engineer's perspective, he may be right.
It has to be subjected to the other areas.
But from where I sit, my point is not just about the engineering and the engineers who are drawing. It is about the entire sector policy decision, which I insist that it is not the politician that goes to sit down and comes out and say, I am doing this. In every ministry, especially in Ghana, in every ministry, there is this unit, directorate we call policy and planning. That has hundreds of people. And then there's another unit directorate called RSIM. Research, Statistics, Information Management Systems. They go out, do research, collect data, brings it to the ministry, then the policy and planning people use. Every ministry also has what we call project, program, something, monitoring and evaluation.
But are these not just on paper?
No, that is not it.
Because the research will go to
you'll be surprised. That is why I'm saying it. That's why I'm telling you forcefully. And you see, that is a certain misconception. That, Ghana politicians, Ghana politicians, these guys at the ministry, they play a very, very critical role.
Yes.
You'll be surprised to even wake up in the morning and get to know who is actually the brain behind debt restructuring, the brain behind e-levy, the brain behind road tolls. You'll be surprised. Okay? But the fact of the matter is that...
But they sell it to
it is you. Exactly.
So the minister buys it.
Exactly.
So the minister owns it.
I agree. And I am with you 100% on that. That is why when who works within the government structure, comes out and I come to hear that a technocrat wants to absorb himself and wants to create an impression as if there is only a situation where only politicians are churning out policies, I will forcefully argue against that. Because I know that, like I said, when I enter the office as a minister, I have an idea. I throw it out. I meet my guys. There's a policy director. He has a team. There's a research guy. They have a team. There's a monitoring and evaluation guy. They will now pick up this and go and conceptualize it. And then they will come up with all the scenarios. I can tell you without any shred of doubt that we can count just about a small percentage of policies that have come out that are unilateral. All these policies have massive input, direction, refinery by technical people.
Very well.
Except that, of course, if it succeeds, it's for us politicians because we are on the ballot paper. If it fails, it is for us. But we should be fair to ourselves and not create an impression that we are paying so much. Look at how much we spend in paying public sector workers. And yet we come and create an impression that these public sector workers, they go to work and their inputs are not factored. That cannot be correct. It is one of the things that a lot of technical people also do when the policy fails. Immediately it fails, you hear them telling, oh, we told them, they didn't listen. A lot of them go and pick the minutes, go into the boardroom, look into the conversations, and you realize that some of the things that you are probably against, that you are probably pointing figures at the politician, was suggested by and he justified it with data.
Data.
Okay. He justified it with data.
The RSIM people.
RSIM policy, and I'm sure Franklin knows this.
Yeah, I'm sure Franklin knows a lot of things. All right, so yeah, I'll take a short break. But when I come back,
I think Franklin
the substantive point I wanted you to respond to was the effort we are making to improve the system, the electronic toll boothing, whether we expand the roads, etc. Franklin thinks that there's no time for that, and we have to go the way it is. Engineer Mahama is giving us a perfect situation. We'll take a short break, return, and then we'll continue this discussion. This is a big issue on 97.3 City FM and on City TV. Don't go away.
É buono per mostre.
All right, you're welcome back to The Big Issue on 97.3 City FM and on City TV. You can join the discussion via 020-444-7033 on WhatsApp, and we will read your messages to the rest of the world. Some of the messages have been coming through. We'll find time, or we'll take time and read some of them out to the rest of the world. We are still looking at the matter of the reintroduction of the road tolls, and my guests have been proffering their views on it. Generally, I'm not sure anybody's against the reintroduction of the tolls. It's just how it will be done, so we do not go back to the same old reason of inconvenience and all of that. And so that's where we are. My guest, Dennis Aboagye, member Government Communication Team, Engineer Abdullahi Mahama, Roads and Building Consultant, Franklin Cudjoe, President Imani Africa. Dennis, yes, so you work with government. I don't want to say you are government, but what is government looking at? So the issue about the improvements, what are we to see? Would we have a situation where the narrow roads, parts of those narrow roads, to be expanded before we do this? And of course, some of the toll booths have not been used for about 1 year. Some of them have to be discarded and new ones built, etc. What's government doing to renovate or to put all those things together properly before we start?
So I think one of the things that everybody has agreed to is that we must see some improvement in the systems at the toll areas, be it digital, electronic, or a hybrid, or a complete digital. I mean, these are things that over the past few days, a lot of people have been throwing in here and there. I expect the road ministry and the finance ministry to pick these things and find ways and means to begin to factor them. But one thing that I can say, and frankly said it, I agree with you, there's no way we can have a perfect system as we anticipate before the takeoff of the reintroduction. There isn't much time. It's already factored into the year's financial arrangement. It's already first quarter gone. Definitely the finance ministry would want to raise that revenue to support the budget and all of that. I expect a gradual improvement, a progressive improvement of the processes and systems. I am not expecting a big bang digitalization of that space because there isn't much time to be able to do that. So we should manage that expectation.
In the budget, the finance minister says it will be reintroduced with a renewed focus on leveraging technology in the collection to address the inefficiencies characterized by the previous.
You know, even the technology, there are levels. Okay, there are technologies that could wipe out completely every single inconvenience.
Okay.
And then there are technologies that would solve it to some extent. You know, each of them have its own timeline of implementation and all of that. If I look at where we are now, the time, March is already gone. The fact that it's part of the financials and figures for 2023, I doubt if we'll be able to have the perfect, digital system that a lot of people are anticipating. I mean, elsewhere in the world, you get to the toll booth, it scans a certain code on your car, some meters away, and then it opens for you. Then you get an email or a text message of your deduction. That for me will be the perfect best system. In that case, it doesn't matter what you have. The people will even be there to sell, because once the car gets there, some few meters away from the toll, it scans, it opens, and then you go. I doubt I am not sure, but I doubt
if that will happen now.
That can happen between now and, because I'm saying this on the back of where we are in terms of our digitalization and digitization. Yes, we have Ghana card synchronized and all of that, but certain things must be done by the user before these things can be triggered. I live around the Spintex motorway, area. I live around the Spintex Tema area. So I use the motorway every day. So at least I use that road twice a day, coming and going. So in a week, it means I'm using that road at least about 10 times, which translates, even if I do 5 days, just weekdays, about 40 times.
About 40 times.
Or 40 times. So government can look at so many other options. Like Franklin said, others have also thrown in the suggestion that, can you just make a projection? I live around that area. If I'm paying 480 cedis a year, it makes room for the projection that I use it at least once a day, in and out. I may use it more than that, but it will make room for others whose computation also didn't fit in.
There are some days you don't even use it at all.
There's some days you don't use at all. So all of these can be considered. Can we use the mobile money? Can we use, University of Ghana has a certain scanning system. Can we use that, where you get there, it scans, and then you pass, you pay a one-off, levy, and then you get a certain card? How does it impact on commercial cars and private cars? How does it impact on ad hoc users of the road? Is it going to be a universal card arrangement? If I don't live at Tema, there are some people who live in Accra, they don't pay tolls, and they get the best routes.
Yeah, that's true.
The East Legon guys.
East Legon people,
okay, they move in Accra, they don't pay tolls. So if that person decides to use the Tema motorway for once in a particular month, and because he doesn't have a toll, he hasn't gone for a certain card, how does he use that road? Is it going to be the case that every single automobile would actually need to go for a certain, so these are things that really, as we are discussing,
but at this point, we should be narrowing in on the specifics, because these are ideas.
So that's what I'm saying. That's why I am saying that I foresee a progressive, movement towards that. So you can have the bigger picture, and then you can have a certain hybrid approach towards getting to the bigger picture. I am expecting to see the toll booths brought back, either the same way it was, with the little digital improvements in there, and then improved gradually.
Does government have a timeline? When is government seeing or looking to introduce this? We are in the middle of March, end of March, early April. When is government looking at to do this?
I think Finance Ministry released a statement. I was just looking at it a few minutes ago. Finance Ministry released a statement to give some clarity on this matter, where they said that the letter we've seen that's circulating the proposed rates.
But government didn't give a timeline.
They said the letter sought to convey proposed rates, for tolling roads and highways. And then similarly, government is in consultation with other relevant stakeholders, and their input to be considered. The reintroduction, and then they go about what it says in the budget and all of that. So there are no timelines yet.
There are no timelines in
yes, by the Finance Ministry and the Road Ministry. What it tells you is that there are some background work that is ongoing. You heard the GPRTU people talk. They need to be engaged on certain things, especially the rates and all of that. And then, like you're saying, in what form is the reintroduction going to come back and all of that. So we should just give government a little bit of time. At least the consultations have started.
You know, government, we want to pay the tolls, but if we are not told to pay, we won't pay. So government needs the money. So government has to work quickly for itself. It's not for us to give government
exactly.
time.
And government has the responsibility to ensure that it's bringing back road tolling that is going to be convenient, that is going to be efficient, and that is going to at least reduce all the challenges that was mentioned in the 2022 during the cancellation, the zero rating of these tolling. I think that whatever the cases would have a much more improved toll booth than it is that we had in the past. It may not be the big bang, but progressively we'll be able to get
And
there.
we hope that when it starts, it will really be progressive.
Exactly.
It will not be that you just started and you leave us that way.
Exactly.
The other issue is people say they don't really see, the improvements on the roads. So, for example, I always use the Dodowa Road, where the toll booth is. Where the toll booth is located, there are potholes there. So you actually park in pothole and pay the toll. It's not encouraging. Others have said that there's not enough money where the toll money goes, the road fund, because it's been capped. Of course, we can never have enough money. You think that the capping is part of the problem? And President some time ago indicated that, there'll be an uncapping. I don't know what you think. What happens to the capping? Is it part of the problem? Or you think that government has not applied the toll money, in a manner that will make people see the improvement on the roads? At least patching of potholes should not be too difficult. Not starting new roads or building new roads, but the existing roads, toll booths must be patched. Toll booths must be patched. I don't know what you think around this. The capping, the application of the toll booth money and all of that.
I think that the data
doesn't support the fact that we are not seeing improvement on the road. I think the issue rather can be if we begin to look into isolated specific areas and say, motorway we are taking to, but we are not seeing patch, because recently a lot of work has been done on the motorway. Like I told you, I use the road. A lot of work has been done in the past.
But I don't know stretch, not much.
8 or 9 months of the road.
Getting potholes coming up.
So we can always look out for, because we always have deficits in our road maintenance and our road construction. That one hasn't changed. If you look at the gap between what we have and what we need to do, and then the gap between the maintenance we have to do and then the resources available, there is always a gap. Every year, government allocates to every municipality and district a certain value or amount for road maintenance, road patching. I was an MC, I was getting it every year. So you have this allocation, and then these road maintenance are always ongoing and a continuous process. So when it comes to road maintenance and road patching, the data is there. I think that a lot of work is being done there. But Salom, our road deficit, both maintenance and new roads, is very huge. It is very, very, very huge. And the earlier we begin to have conversations around, you see, it's a chicken and egg situation. Which one comes first? Do we construct the road first before we're able to make money out of it, or before we're able to get people to accept to pay a certain amount of money, or we raise the money to be able to construct the road? And I think that in the recent past, both governments, NDC and NPP, have shown the way and some commitment when it comes to road constructions. Fortunately, this time we are really talking the data. The data is there. Recently, the data was shared in Parliament, where you can see roads, both maintenance, sealing, new constructions that have gone on between 2012 and 2016, and the ones that have happened between 2017 and 2021. So we can always look at the data. And I think that if you look at the data and compare it to where we've come from, really, I think that we've done we made some progress when it comes to our road sector. But the biggest challenge with our road sector is that there isn't enough money to construct the road.
Exactly why the capping of the road fund is a problem.
Yeah, but there are this same challenge that we have at the road sector is in other places. So you must always, in managing all of these things, find ways to push resources to all the sectors.
So it throws it back to the matter of efficiency in the collection. Now,
yes.
We've heard that 60-70% is what is realized. What happens to the 30-40%? It goes elsewhere. How are we ensuring that these loopholes are closed so that we really have what it is, that we collect?
As a state, that has always been our biggest challenge, and the idea is to continuously work to improve upon that, and that's why this whole digitalization thing is embraced by so many people, because in all our tax collection touch points, That's one of our biggest challenges.
Because this whole talk about digitization and all the political twists and turns it has, I see the reintroduction of the road tolls as a major test for our success in the area of digitalization. If you've touted digitalization all this while and we are unable to apply that to the road tolling sector, then we've not really done
First of all, it's not just political. We are seeing progress.
It's become a political message. That's what I mean.
No.
It's become a political message.
No, we are seeing successes on the digitalization front across several other sectors, which is bringing in money and sealing loopholes. Several others, the GRA, the way people do businesses, the way people pay income taxes, and all of that. We've seen a lot of progress there, but it's a continuous process. I mean, already we have challenges in even identifying the human beings who live in the country and live in the state. We are still getting there, so we need to begin to take out this whole thinking that it's become a political slogan. It is no longer a political slogan.
It
is a reality now.
Because your guys use it, and once they use it, the other side will find loopholes.
No.
And then it becomes a political football.
You find loopholes and it becomes a political football when the obvious is not there. The obvious is that the successes that digitization is bringing to us as a country is key. And the results are there to show in several fronts. So now, what do we do to ensure that the other sectors that we haven't yet been able to impact with the digitization drive would also feel the impact? Like we are discussing with Roto. How do we ensure that all the various digitized platforms that we have and all the synchronizations that we've done, how do we rope it into road toll collections? The good news is that what this whole policy and drive towards digitalization has done for us is to now create the base for us to always go in there and say, what do we have? How can we bring it into this space? And for me, I think it's key. It's no longer a slogan, but it's a reality. And I believe that.
So I think it's a slogan and it's a reality.
It is no longer a slogan.
It's still a slogan.
When you throw it out there just like that, then you make it look like there's no value in there. There's a lot of value in there. I mean, value that we cannot at this point.
Very well. Let me just on the very last issue. The minority in Parliament has raised some matters. And they say that they want to be convinced that the money will be used for the real thing. Do you anticipate a difficulty in getting this passed in Parliament, given the nature of the Parliament we have and the resolve by the minority to subject everything to scrutiny?
For me, I think so far there isn't even a single thing that, for me, the NDC in Parliament, they are really in a political frenzy since January 7, 2021. For them,
you think what you are doing is not giving the voter value for money?
For them, their first thought is opposed. For them, that is the whole essence of having.
But that's opposition parties do.
Exactly. So right now,
and once they do that, they scrutinize and bring us value for money.
Hopefully, I hope they are doing that for the purpose of value for money. If they are doing that for the purpose of value for money, they wouldn't have done that to us in 2022, which actually caused us a lot of challenges that we are facing now. The delay in the passing of the application.
Because you didn't listen. No, they raised points. You didn't listen.
The point is not about raising points and not listening. The point is
about passing it the way
when somebody is being deliberate and intentional about disruption.
Because they say they hear from their
disruption.
Their constituents.
If you have a parliament, they don't listen from their they listen from Adabraka. The NDC MPs, they are not listening to their constituents.
So you don't know that.
It's public knowledge.
No, but
isn't Adabraka issuing letters to them every time, every point?
The same way Asalam down. The same way Asalam also does. Asalam down said, "Don't support Kenneth Furate's motion on censure."
We see Adabraka so many times.
Because Adabraka is in opposition.
We see Adabraka.
So you have Jubilee House and you have Asalam down. But Jubilee House is bigger because you are in government.
We see Adabraka so many times. So
the same way we see Jubilee House and Asalam.
Okay, fair enough. So don't make the point about constituents. So don't make the point about.
No, but that's what they say.
Fair enough. Don't make the point about constituents.
And even we also said.
So they are not listening.
No, we also said it that the rate was too high. Let's.
We are listening to Asalam down. They are listening to Adabraka, not to the constituents. Just take it as such.
Then we are not making progress. That's why we are here.
I am just correcting the point that the NDC are not listening to their constituents. They are listening to Adabraka. That is the truth, and the letters are out there.
And you also listen to Asalam now.
We are in government, so
it is
synchronized.
It comes from Jubilee House.
It's synchronized.
Asalam House.
It's synchronized. Once you are in government, your party and government are one.
Once you are in opposition, Your party is one.
Perfect. So don't make the point about they listening to.
So you also don't listen to your constituents.
Wherever it is.
You both don't listen
I am
to your
just correcting you.
So you are making an admission today.
I didn't say that. No,
politicians or MPs don't listen to the people.
No, I didn't say that. You make the point about the constituents, and I am telling you that it is not correct.
And you people don't listen to constituents.
You can also make your point on the MPP. I am telling you about the NDC. But the point here is that I am not expecting anything less than disruption by the NDC.
So anything that comes with disruption, and it may be constructed, but you construe it as
and the point is that don't forget the reintroduction of the toll. They've already passed it. They've passed it.
No, I mean the rate and
but they've passed it. I just want you to. They've passed it. So it's not as if they are not going to.
It came with the budget.
Yes. So
but of course, the budget is a broader framework.
So what they are going to discuss is not whether road toll should be.
No, but we saw that in E-levy. E-levy in principle was passed.
No. What they are going to pass is not that the road toll should come or not. It is how much it should be charged. So it shouldn't be so much of a difficulty.
Yes, but we saw that also in the E-levy. E-levy was passed as a principle.
If not for anything at all, I'm not expecting the NDC to say that the road toll should go lesser than it was in the past.
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
So worst case scenario,
that's what they have said is they've put some conditions in place.
That's what the Ministry of Finance is saying, that the rate that came out was a leak because it was a consultation process. So if they go to Parliament and Parliament makes the case that don't make it 1 cedi, make it 50%, I don't think it's such a big deal. It is up to the Finance Ministry to recalibrate their figures and then make progress. But of course, I expect disruption and then again misleading. Because until this morning, I'm sure a lot of NDC folks actually thought that Roto is going to Parliament for approval. And because that's what the MPs are trying to put out there. Roto,
but I think it's a technicality.
Reintroduction,
I think
it is not.
It's just like the E-levy.
Reintroduction
it's a technicality.
Of Roto.
The broad framework, yes, we understand.
Reintroduction of Roto has been passed. Reintroduction of Roto has been passed. What you saw out there is new rates that the ministry wants to introduce, which they say they are making consultations. So there is nothing about NDC coming in with conditions. The condition is that when you collect the money, construct the road.
So for example, you said it's been zero rated. You said it's been zero rated. So what they are just doing is just to now on zero rated, if there's any phrase like that. That's what they're just trying to do. Exactly. So yes, it's understandable that it's been passed, but the details will matter. And
but if you go to the you see, if you go to the if you go to the 2023 budget, okay, the fees and charges schedule, there is a provision made for road tolls. Is there?
Yes.
What is going to be discussed now is the new rates that government wants to introduce.
Yes.
So that for me is the issue.
Yeah, but it's always been the case. The point I'm making is it's always been the case. E-levy was any budget, any new tax has projections in the main budget. Yes. But when it comes down to it, we will decide whether the rate is what we can bear.
But the schedule attached to the 2023 budget, that has passed already.
But the budget is
what is being discussed.
The budget is a budget.
So if that's what the ministry has said, what they have is consultation. They could decide that, listen, whatever it is in the budget, let's go and implement
Very well. So let's make progress. So I'm going to the next topic. But Engineer Mahama, I want your final thoughts on this whole toll booth and road tolls, engineering, government policy, everything quickly, so that we can move to the next topic.
Well, like we all agreed, bringing it back immediately.
I think you have to unmute.
I think on mute.
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
All right. So I'm saying that after the suspension, most of the toll booths are damaged. So even if you want to go and do that quickly, it may take some time, maybe about a month or two, to get all of them functioning. The second thing is that if we're using the gantries, I think that's the best option where we will not even have the swing stick, like what is at the University of Ghana. We need to have speed ramps like 2, or we call the speed table, so that you just come down in a microsecond, so that when you are coming, the cameras which are fixed on the gantries may just pick you, and then you have a prompt on your phone. The other last thing that I expect government to take its attention closer is the other feature you see sometimes after the toll, after a longer stretch, which is the axle weight. The axle weight is such that it's supposed to determine the weight of the vehicles plying our roads. And so sad that, like, we are not paying the toll now, the vehicles from other neighboring countries who are exerting so much load on our roads, damaging our roads, are not paying a peso. So that's, I think, where I have to be the discussion.
Very well. We thank you so much. Franklin, 30 seconds before we move to the next topic.
Well, I think for me, we should be pragmatic about these things. And I think you predicated your last questions to my good friend Dennis on the e-levy debacle. I think we don't want to see that happening again. But that decision not to see this happening again or happen again is rooted in the science of ensuring that all boxes are checked, all consultations are made before you actually go in for a policy like this. So whether it's expecting a storm from the NDC or not, it's actually not the issue. The issue would have been, are they willing to provide those caps? Because we also know that the minister can re-engineer these caps anyway and use it the way he wants. And that's the political imperative that trumps policy and expert advice I was talking about.
Very well. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Franklin Cudjoe, who joins us for the next discussion. Engineer Abdullah Mahama, thanks so much for joining us and helping us with your expertise. We are forever grateful for your availability. Dennis Abuaji, member of Government Communications Team, he also joins us for the next discussion, which is on gold for oil. And they will be joined by Edward Bauer, MP for Bongo, and Duncan Amoah, who is Executive Secretary for the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC. We'll take a short break. When we come back, and then we'll hit the discussion. Don't go away. Yeah, welcome back to the big issue. My name is Salom Adonu. Just gone by as a discussion on the reintroduction of road tolls. And it's been clear that people are not unhappy with the reintroduction. What they care about is that the process must be convenient, it must be efficient, and we must see really what the money collected is used for. Also, now we have a situation of gold for oil, G for O, as we call it, or as it's been called. And the vice president appears to be, or is actually leading this process. And what is it? It means that Ghana will exchange gold for oil. And it is not as simple as that. There are a few technicalities in there we want to delve into and understand it properly. But just to update on what the vice president has been up to and saying, he says that, or he's actually reiterated government's effort at addressing the dwindling foreign currency reserves with the gold for oil policy. According to him, the vice president, the policy is the most important macroeconomic policy intervention to deal with exchange rate issues. Dr. Bawumia disclosed this at the commissioning of the new head office of the Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation Company Limited, BOST, in Accra.
Gold for oil policy, which was announced last year by the government, is to allow it to pay for imported oil products with gold. This will be in two channels, via barter trade or via forex obtained from selling gold to a broker. The move announced by the Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia is an intervention to help stabilize prices of fuel products as well as reduce the pressure on Ghana's foreign exchange. According to him, the gold for oil policy, which is now in its third month, is already yielding a positive impact and is expected to do more. So far, it has seen about 100,000 metric tons of fuel brought into the country. Speaking at the commissioning of the new head office for the Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation Company Limited, BOST, in Accra, Dr. Bawumia reiterated that the policy is on course to achieve its overall objective, arguing that the policy is the most important macroeconomic policy intervention introduced to deal with exchange rate issues.
The gold for oil policy is the first policy of its kind in Ghana since independence to address this type of balance of payments crisis that we faced. In my humble opinion, this is the most important macroeconomic policy intervention to deal with the exchange rate depreciation, fuel price, food price, and inflation nexus that we have had. We have not only seen, as a result of the policy, we have not only seen a decline in prices from the 23 cedis per litre to around 12 cedis per litre, we have also seen stability in the exchange rate as we predicted. And I must say, all thanks should go to the Ministry of Energy, to BOST, to MPA, to the Bank of Ghana, Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, and the PMMC, who rose up to the occasion when we face this crisis of a rapidly depreciating currency along with rapidly increasing fuel, transportation, and food prices.
He also announced that consumers of petroleum products should expect a further decrease in the prices of fuel at the pumps from tomorrow as a result of the implementation of government's policy. Already, the national average price for petrol and diesel currently stands at 13 cedis 53 pesos and 13 cedis 69 pesos respectively.
I've been told that next week we are likely to see fuel prices fall again as a result of this policy. Next week is not actually, Professor has just said, it's not that far. It's tomorrow. Tomorrow we will see the decline in prices that we expect. I mean, this is remarkable. 2.5 months ago, you are at 23 cedis per liter. Today, you are at 12 cedis and falling.
Yeah, so you heard Dr. Bawumia there in typical fashion, extolling the policy of government, saying that it is the most important macroeconomic policy intervention to deal with exchange rate issues. And this is Dr. Bawumia talking about exchange rate issues. And he calls this good for oil the most important macroeconomic policy intervention. That is quite huge. Dennis is here. We have Edward Bauer as well on the line, who I will go to pretty shortly. Edward Bauer has been at the Ministry of Energy for a while. He got to Parliament. He's on the Energy Committee, one of the go-to persons on energy matters, and he speaks for the NDC on many platforms on energy. MP he's a member of Parliament for Bongo. But I'll start off with Dennis. He's in government. So Dennis, gold for oil, we heard this sometime late last year, and a few weeks ago we heard that 40,000 metric tons of gold for oil has come. At the time, fuel prices were not declining, and we were told that the 40,000 was less than 10% of our monthly consumption. So that was like a drop in the ocean. It could not have had any significant impact on the pricing. There was another 40,000 which came another time. But now, all of a sudden, Dr. Bawumia is telling us that the decline in the prices should be actually attributed to the gold for oil. And I'm not sure we've had such a large, a lot of metric tons of gold for oil coming into the country. Why will Dr. Bawumia want to be taking credit for something the policy hasn't started doing yet? But before you answer that, give us a brief summary of what the gold for oil policy is and what it is intended to do.
So, we have a very interesting country where when the thing is bad, it's government. And government doesn't even have the right to even give clarity as to why we are where we are. And yet, when it is good and government says, this is why we are improving, they say, no, it is not you. If government is not responsible, and I think I made that statement here somewhere, if government is not responsible for the price improvement in fuel prices, then why would you come and blame government when the prices are going up? It's a very hypocritical position. There are several factors.
No, I think government is not responsible directly. But government is responsible for the factors.
But if it is bad, it is government for those factors. But it is good, it is not government.
No, but factors like what? I'll
come to it. Okay. But that's not the only thing that determines the fuel prices. There are several things. The world market price is part.
The margins.
The premium is
the
part.
Taxes.
Even the taxes is part.
The margins.
And yes, the margins, the taxes is part. And then the exchange rate.
Yes.
They all contribute to the cost of the fuel. And so if it's bad, it is government. It is good, it is not government. I think anybody that says that gold for oil has nothing to do with the situation we are finding ourselves in is only not being truthful. And they are doing that because of the way they poo-pooed the policy when it was announced first. And I've heard ISEP and the rest. There's an article on ISEP's website. When you read it, there's no way they'll come and praise gold for oil. Because they were completely pessimistic about the policy. They said so many things. This one I was looking at it. And so I'm not surprised they have that position. But Salom, let me put it on record here. That the situation we find ourselves in terms of the current situation, in terms of the fuel price today, is as a result of the gold for oil policy. And the reasons are these. As we speak, the total quantity of fuel that has come in through the gold for oil policy is 295,022 metric tons. Okay. Right now, as we talk,
within what period?
as we talk, I mean January up to as we speak today, there is an offloading happening as we speak today. Okay, of oil from the gold for oil policy, and you see, these things are public knowledge. These data are out there. If you pick the data, you'd see where every single fuel that we are using in this country has come from. And so if our consumption is, say, 400,000 metric tons, like we put it, and for the records, the 400,000 metric tons is not just diesel and petrol. The 400,000 metric tons contains other fuels like jet fuel and fuel oil and kerosene. Diesel and petrol is actually 350,000 metric tons. Okay? And as we speak, diesel and oil, that gold for oil has brought into the country, is about 295,000 metric tons. And I'll give you the breakdown if you have the time. There's one that came, SCF Yenisei, it brought 49,904. That was the first one that we all heard about. MT DAS, that also brought 51,044. 42,490 metric tons. And that one was diesel. The first two, they were all diesel. Then we received MT Shamina. That was 29,638 metric tons. Then we received MT Bora Bora, 35,615 metric tons. Then we received again MT Yenisei, the very first one that came early January. That brought 39,610 metric tons. As we speak this morning, as I'm speaking to you, there's an offloading going right now, discharging of a cargo right now as we speak. So let's. I have it. I don't have the volume of that, but this morning it's happening. So let's go through the gold for oil again. The vice president has always said that the exchange rate is one of the reasons why our forward pricing is the way it is. Because if you remember correctly, during the October 2nd window, we were buying fuel at about 13 cedis petrol, and then 15 cedis for diesel. At that time, the forex, and which is BOG, was about 14.59. At that time, the forward exchange rate that the BDCs were using was about 19 cedis. 19. And they are doing 19 because that was the time where the depreciation was very bad. It was very volatile. So the whole idea is that if you go and buy the fuel at, let's say, 11 cedis, by the time it gets to Ghana, you offload, you sell, it's moved to 14 cedis. So you peg it as a certain point. And so you'd realize that whilst we are talking about exchange rate of 14 cedis around that October, they are doing 19 cedis. Obviously, even if the international crude price is very low, the impact will be coming from where the exchange rate has been pegged. And that is why if you look at the September 1st window, Super was selling for 11.55, and I'm using GWEL figures. And then diesel was selling for 14.55. That was the time that Super was selling for 942 per metric tons in the international world market. And then diesel was $1,195 per metric tons. At that time, Forex was 10.18. Then the September window, Super came down to 10.95. Diesel, 14.5. At that time, the Super dropped to 847. So you see its reflection in the GWEL price. Then the diesel came down by just about 3 to 1,092. Okay, but come to the November window, the first window, we were selling petrol as high as 17.99, all-time high, and then selling diesel for 23.49. At that time, the international market was at 963 for petrol, and then diesel was 1,220, higher than it is during the September window, and yet the Forex exchange rate was 14.55, lower than the October 2nd, the second window. This is a November one. The point here is that the dollar rate as we speak now has been very stable since the coming in of the gold for oil. And the reason is that at least 50% of the dollars that we need to be able to go and import fuel into the country, that is about $400 million that we need. At least 50% of that has been taken away through the gold for oil arrangement, where we are no longer looking for dollars on the market. Remember, what is not in demand doesn't have bigger value. So every month, we are looking for $400 million to go and buy the fuel for the country. Some people are buying $2 million every day. So every day they are scrambling. At some point, Bank of Ghana was auctioning, but Bank of Ghana doesn't have enough. So the commercial banks will also be selling. The commercial banks will not sell it at the Bank of Ghana rate. If Bank of Ghana is doing 14 cedis, commercial bank will be doing 16, 17 cedis. What it means is that the forest bureaus will be doing more, and then the BDCs will be doing some 5 cedis, 7 cedis more than what the forex exchange rate is, and that will impact on our currency. So what gold for oil does is that the value of dollars that we need to go and import, you use cedis here in Ghana to buy gold. When you buy the gold you will take out there to do two things. Go and look for a seller or a supplier of the fuel who can take the gold. Then you can give him the gold, he gives you fuel, you bring to Ghana. What it means is that if we are looking for dollars to import fuel, we are looking for only $200 million. We are no longer looking for $400 million. It has reduced the demand. Obviously, it would have an effect on the cost.
So it will have an effect on the exchange rate.
On the exchange rate.
Have an effect on the cost.
Exactly. So that principle must be very well understood. That principle must be very well understood.
Let me test your principle on the stability of the exchange rate. We know that there are certain times of the year that the exchange rate is stable. It's not the doing of government or anybody. It's just the way it is by the way the market operates. In the last quarter, people look for money for Christmas imports, etc. So we see a lot of fluctuations, as we saw in October, November, and even parts of December. So that was pretty normal, only that it went a bit up in last year. Around this time, exchange rates historically have been stable. So it will not be appropriate per the records and historically to attribute the stability of the exchange rate right now to the gold for oil.
You know what? Around this time every year for a very long time in the life of this country, by this time we have gone to the Eurobond to go and borrow about $1 billion, $2 billion and bring it to the country. That is the reason why you are not seeing that arrangement.
The other point is that importers...
That is the truth.
The other point is that importers have now gone for... I've imported things.
But they are converting into dollars.
For the Christmas period.
That is not true because they brought it during the Christmas. They have cedis and they are converting. So it is not true. They have cedis, even though they brought so much into the country, so they were looking for dollars. For which reason you claim it goes up. In January, it doesn't go down because importers don't need dollars. Because whatever they are selling, they are converting into dollars. So they are always looking for the dollar. The dollar is always in demand. But what happens to us over the years is that, and actually that is one of the reasons why last year we saw that irregular depreciation of the cedi. Because last year, remember, we didn't get that $1 billion, $2 billion we go for the Eurobond in the last 8, 10, 12 years of our lives, where every year we go for that money to finance our budget. So there was shortage of the forex in the country. So the reality is that it is not because the importers in December went for dollar and January they don't need dollar. Why? In January, are we not eating? Are we not importing? Are we not buying? I am telling you that today, as we sit today, people are still negotiating and transacting business on forex, and they are going to buy on Monday. Every day, BDCs are buying $1 million, $2 million every single day. Rice importers, sugar importers, no matter the period we are in the year. So long as you are an importer, you are always buying dollar. You don't have a period where you say, I'm not buying. Today, if you sell, you convert it into dollars. That is how they do it.
Very well.
So no, let me learn so that there is some proper, perspective to this. So look at this. Between October 2022 and December, the exchange rate depreciated by 27.6%. Okay, I think October it was 27.6. November it was 17%. Now, since the takeoff of gold for oil, the cedi has depreciated only 1.9% in February, and as at now, as at 15th month, 0.9%. The reality of the matter is that some $200 million that we look for every month to go and import oil has been taken out, and its impact naturally will be felt on the price of crude, in spite of whether the crude international price has gone down or not. Because if the international price goes down and your exchange rate is high, you will still be selling your fuel prices high. Today, the international prices have gone down as against how it was in September. But in September, October, dollar was about 19 cedis. Today, even the forward exchange rate is at 14 cedis. Even the forward exchange rate is at 14 cedis.
So for
and
you,
do you know why? Do you know why?
Good for oil?
Do you know why it's at 14 cedis? Because of the stability
of the city.
Which
is occasioned by the good for oil.
Which is occasioned by the good for oil.
Very
because
well.
$200 million of dollar that we need every month has been taken away. If you do not agree with this, then show us why.
Very well.
You think that the city is stable.
I think other panelists who don't agree with you will show us why. Edward Bauer, welcome to the program. Apologies for keeping you waiting for a while, but we appreciate your time as always. So, good for oil. Very novel. We've not really seen anything like this. Indeed, the Vice President has described it as the most important macroeconomic policy intervention to deal with exchange rate issues. And Dennis here has tried to explain to us that the stability we've seen in the city is chiefly attributed to, or should be attributed to, the Gold for Oil program. He thinks that the Gold for Oil program is to be praised for the downward trend the prices of petrol and other fuel products are taking. Your side hasn't really hailed this policy. What do you have to say? The truth or the fact is that fuel prices are coming down. The other fact is that the exchange rate is stable. What do you have to say about this?
Thank you very much, and then good morning to my colleague panelists. First and foremost, let me state very clearly that when you can have somebody being treated for a particular condition, but you must know exactly what cured the person or what was used in treatment. So, yes, the facts are that the forex exchange rate has been sliced. The fact is that the prices of crude have also been coming down. But as to the reasons ascribed is what we need to debate this morning. Yes, it's true that in the last quarter, maybe even some part of even the second quarter of last year, prices of pump prices were going up. And pump prices were going up because our exchange rate was simply not stable. Our city was depreciating very hugely. We also had a situation where the prices of crude in the international market was also going up. At one point, we went up to about $128 per barrel. Now, we had indicated very clearly that when the prices of crude started coming down and still we're having increases at our pumps, it was very clear that it had zeroed down to just the issue of the forex. Now, the current initiative that the Vice President, or for that matter, the EMT, introduced was that, look, we want to see how we can cure the forex rate issue. And therefore, we eliminate it from the price buildup. So that's it. Because if you look at the pump prices that we have, the price buildup, the exchange rate is a factor that is included in the calculation of what they call it, the ex-pump prices. And so how do we eliminate that? For them, their initiative was that the policy seems to say, the way we understand it, the initial policy was that, look, we would get gold from PMMC, who also then buy it from what they call it, the small-scale miners. And then we will backer that for oil. And in doing that, we will have been circumventing the issue of having to look for dollars to be able to use to buy. Question. Government's own pronouncements seem to suggest, and that is very clear. I remember when the first cargo arrived, and the Deputy Minister for Finance, Deputy Minister for Energy, yes, was pushed. He said the Bank of Ghana pre-financed that. It was not good. And going forward, they have, in a way, tried to, as it were, amend the policy. Now, the policy seems to suggest, from what we know, is that Bank of Ghana supplies the money to PMMC. PMMC, that's in cedis. Then Precious Minerals Marketing Company then goes to buy gold from the local market in cedis, and then sell that gold to a trader in dollars and put that in an escrow. The dollars are then used in buying petroleum products. And the petroleum products are bought and sold in cedis. And then the money deposited at the Bank of Ghana for the cycle to continue. I don't know whether I'm making sense.
Mm-hmm.
So the issue of exchange rate differential, elimination of exchange rates in the build-up does not exist. And clearly it is not butter. What I have described is not butter. Technical, in terms of technical definition. 2, if you look currently as we speak, the policy basically targets 2 petroleum products. The 2 petroleum products is gas oil and gasoline. That's diesel and petrol. Our consumption for gas oil on a monthly basis, based on historical data from MPA and what have you, for a month, it's about 160,000 metric tons. That of gasoline is about 135,000 metric tons. That gives you around 295, or let's say 300,000 metric tons. This policy started, so the government announced this policy somewhere around mid-January of this year. Until so let's say from mid-January this year to mid-March, because we are in March, isn't it? That will give us a space of about 2 months. 2 months. What it means is that our total consumption, based on historical data, should be around 600,000 metric tons.
Uh-huh.
If you look at the 3 cargoes that have come up till now, until my brother started giving us figures and saying that somebody, they are bringing, other cargoes and that they are delivering some even as they speak. We knew that the first cargo that came was about 40,000 metric tons.
Mm-hmm.
The second one that came was 35,000 metric tons.
Mm-hmm.
The third one that came was 40,000 metric tons. And when I say 40, and I mean these are combined figures.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just looking at just gasoline and then gas oil. I'm just looking at the combined figures.
Yes.
That gives you a total of about 115,000 metric tons in the 2 month space.
Yes, but I think your figures are not up to date. The government tells us that 5 cargoes have arrived, which
I'm coming to that place.
Okay.
I'm just coming. So
Okay.
I'm just making a point.
Okay.
I'm just giving you what, because that's what I'm saying, that he had indicated that there are some cargoes that have come.
Mm-hmm.
I get the point I'm making. That subsequently they are even offloading some cargoes as we speak.
Yes.
But the point I'm making is that let's even use the figures that he's giving to us. That's roughly around 200 something. What figure did he give?
295,000 metric tons.
Yeah, that's gives the 295,000 metric tons. That basically is about, so for 2 months consumption.
That's about half.
It's about half of it. That is what he's giving for that. My brother, it is important to clear, and you remember that I have stated clearly that the issue of taking out the forex rate is not true, because if you look at the sale, the process, the fact that Bank of Ghana gives cash in cedis to PPFC, PMMC also then buys the dollar, the gold in dollars, in cedis, sells it in dollars, buy the product, bring it and sell it in cedi. There's an exchange rate factor in it, and that exchange rate factor, whether it is it is stable, it's not stable. There's an exchange rate, because the initial target is that once eliminate the exchange rate factor. He attributes the whole idea, the whole argument of the fact that it is because of the gold for oil. That is the reason. My brother, just sit down. And you had given one that historically, the first quarter of every year, we usually do not have this. We normally have a dollar to CD exchange rate being stable. Besides that, since government announced officially that way, and therefore, for example, domestic bonds and other things were not to be able to pay, and therefore that was how the debt exchange rate about. As we speak, since the announcement, government has not paid any of the interest rates on our bonds. What it then means is that the amount, and you know that in this country, almost 80% of what we generated was used in exchange interest payments. But since the cessation of the interest payments to our foreign bondholders, it has given the central bank space not to be looking for dollars. So beyond just the historical one, it is about the debt restructuring project, and it is not the goal for oil. It's because we are not looking for dollars to pay for our interest, particularly the foreign, our bondholders that is dollar denominated. So we do not look for dollars to do that. So for the vice president to create the impression that it is because of gold for oil, that cannot be the fact. And besides that, look, my brother, you cannot discount the drastic reduction in the prices of crude, because we were talking of almost about 120, 130 thereabout. So almost about 50% of the price has been slashed down. Because as we speak now, we sell a barrel of crude is going for around $74 per barrel. So it gives you a very fair idea as to the reasons behind the reduction. The reasons behind the reduction is because, yes, there's a stability of the cedi, but the stability of the cedi is because currently we are not doing the interest payments to our foreign bondholders and all holders bonds that are dollar denominated. We are not. There's a suspension of it. So government does not need to mobilize these resources and do that. It is not because of the gold for oil. And that is a point that we need to do. He indicates very clearly and says that, look, people were poo-pooing this. Look, my brother, there are other consequences that we need attended by. Maybe going forward, we may discuss that. That currently is creating uneasiness for the operators within the industry. In as much as government is unable to meet the total consumption of Ghanaians through this particular program, it means that BDCs and OTCs will still have to be supplying petroleum products in some form, a percentage of it to the industry. Those who deal with the BOST, the BDCs that deal with the conditions under which you could qualify to deal with BOST on the gold for oil, those practitioners, industry players, or the BDCs that partake in that particular program are given a different exchange rate. Those that have to then go either through auctioning or go to commercial banks are also dealing with different exchange rates. It is gradually making those BDCs that are not part of the gold for oil program uncompetitive. They simply are not competitive and are gradually being crowded out from the market. Two, I told you that if you look at the transaction that is going on between Bank of Ghana, Precious Minerals Marketing Company, and then the subsequent sale of the gold, and then the buying of the crude and coming, there's an exchange rate factor in there. The truth of the matter is that if you look at the exchange rates, because this BOST has been given a different exchange rate to deal with, any forex liability, government has not created or told us in the policy how the forex exchange, assuming that it's a forex exchange loss, who bears that particular liability? Because they have a fixed rate they give to BOST. Our history why we deregulated the downstream sector in July 2015 was because any time we saw the SOEs, particularly the energy sector SOEs, venture into commercial activities, it incurred indebtedness. BOST itself has a history of incurring indebtedness in the course of their operations. You have a situation where you are giving them a fixed rate. Meanwhile, the exchange rate that you have, you don't have control over that. Because assuming that you bought this in for X amount of money, you are still selling it in cedis. And when you sell it in cedis and to deposit that in the escrow account in Bank of Ghana, when Bank of Ghana is going to buy again the amount of gold that it needs to be able to go and do and get the attention of, let's use the government's figures, the 50% of our total consumption. Any, in terms of exchange rate liabilities, who bears that? Is it BOST, Bank of Ghana, or who? Because we know that they give a fixed rate to BOST. So I'm just giving you these factors to just let you know that the explanation given by the vice president that talks about the fact that the reason why we have reductions of pump prices is because of the Gulf oil cannot be the case. Because you and I, and this is data that is public, about 80% of our total revenue that we mobilize that for just interest payments alone. And now we are not doing that. So we do not need to look for dollars to pay for our interest rates, interest payments. And so that is one of the things that has reduced the pressure on the city and not go for oil.
Very well. So very interesting point you made about the interest payments as a result of the debt restructuring. We'll subject that to some scrutiny from the other guests. But won't you agree that, of course, you have dealt with the gold for oil in a certain way, but won't you agree that there are also oil marketing companies out there who will take the gold because they have the capacity to take the gold? So that is a direct barter. Of course, there could be what you are talking about, but won't you think that there's also the direct barter, which is the exchange of the gold directly for the oil? And if so, won't that have any effect on the exchange rate? Because that is the whole argument.
The evidence,
whilst you are saying
government
that,
has,
go ahead.
Sorry, government has not demonstrated and shown to us in evidence that actually they have been able to engage in a barter relationship between they and whoever the prospective partner is. They have not been able to demonstrate that. What we rather do know is about the transaction I have made. Yes, the initial intent was that, look, we'll get gold. We'll come and barter with you and get crude oil. But that's simply at the market. In real implementation of it, they had challenges. And that's how the policy was reviewed. And now what they do is what I just said, from central bank to the precious minerals marketing company. They then take the money, buy from the local market, sell it in dollars, deposit that in an escrow. They use that to buy the importation. The importation is brought back to Ghana. They sell it in cedis, and the cycle continues. That's exactly what is happening. And it is not barter.
Yeah, but whether it's barter or not, is that not giving us a certain result which is favorable for us?
The result is, that's why I have.
So you're saying that we cannot be sure. It is. We cannot be sure if that is what is giving us the result.
You see, the essence was to eliminate the exchange rate factor in our price buildup. From the narration.
But if that could be reduced, if that factor could be reduced, not to eliminate it entirely, wouldn't that be proper or positive for us?
But I'm just saying that yes, the exchange rate, there has been stability of it. But I'm saying that the stability is not attributable to that. It's attributable largely to the fact that we are not currently honoring our interest payments.
Servicing debts in dollars.
Yes, and that's the issue. That is what is giving the stability to KCD beyond the historical occurrences of the fact that the first quarter usually has that.
To this, Duncan Amoah, COPEG Executive Director, and COPEG is really. Okay, so I don't have Duncan now. I have Franklin Cudjoe. Franklin, very interesting dimension Edward is introducing into the discussion, that we are seeing the stability of the cedi, not because of the gold for oil, which Dennis has tried to convince us that it is the case. He is saying that because of the debt restructuring and because we are not servicing external debts, which is in dollars, there's no demand on the Bank of Ghana to look for dollars. There's no demand on the exchange rate. And so the stability of the cedi is what we see, and not gold for oil. I thought that was an interesting one. When you look at it, when you juxtapose it against the position of Dennis or government, what do you stand in this? What do you say?
Ghana's economic fundamentals or economic indicators are not difficult to comprehend and explain. I mean, I'm tempted to believe my good friend Bauer, because clearly speaking, the major dynamic that is playing out here is the absence of our debt settling anyway. So that should be taken into consideration. I'm a bit more mortified. I won't pretend that government intentions are noble and right, but I ask myself the question: when government has always involved themselves in these kinds of business, which are clearly the expertise of private sector actors, what exactly has been the result, right? If we do not take care, we might end up landing ourselves in another debt situation. To think that, Boss itself has got its legacy problems and challenges, which have not been fixed entirely. I know my good friend what's the guy's name again? The guy who runs Bost, would say that he's done a human Provincial. He seems to be doing something right. But again, there's the large arm of government or the state hand looming all over him, right? So the certainty with which these gains can be, should I say, measured and then possibly impacting the economy itself, is still, the jury is still out there. So my worry really is that, look, what government essentially is doing is to take out two expert providers of, well, the gold exporters and then the oil importers, people who have spent their years honing their skills and then getting good at these kinds of trades. If it is the argument that because of the large exposure of our forex to these entities are the reasons why our currency keeps suffering, I'm not too sure that government replacing them essentially will be the panacea. There's another indicator I need to bring to the table, by the way. I was reading a report by Northern Aqua Hayford. I think he has his Northern reports. And he makes an interesting finding that the gold for oil pricing seems to be a bit higher than that of the those who do not go for those who engage in traditional sale of importation of fuel and then onward sale to consumers. And I found the statistics there very interesting. I don't know if Dennis has seen it. But Norman is a reputable journalist, and I believe his sources are solid. And I think we need to take that seriously into the equation. The question is, it starts nicely as government wants to do something noble, but at the end of the day, we all know how it ends. It either ends in tears or in debt. And that's not, we do not want that scenario again. So for me, those are the things I'll be flagging. But certainly, it's curious, and I think it's something we should study. I have not looked at the trend, but I think I'm tempted to believe, Bara, that clearly speaking, our exposure largely has been curtailed because of this debt exchange program, which obviously is also as a result of the decisions we've taken as a country. So I'll just sound caution for governments that, look, don't think this is Uhuru yet. Maybe you are seeing marginal gains, but the real test is in whether you can sustain it by your own administrative overheads and, of course, that usually often referred to as, should I call it, the underhand or the long hand of the state taking a toll on the operations of these endeavors anyway.
Ending in tears or in debt. How does this end in debt, really? If Bauer's should I say, appreciation of the issue is what we are to go with. Government, Bank of Ghana gives PMMC money. PMMC goes to buy the gold and then gives the gold to the guys outside there, puts the money in an escrow, buys the fuel. How does that end in debt?
Well, we are talking about the fiscal slippages. I mean, the manhandling of the revenues or should I say, the process. I mean, I'm looking at it from a more, should I say, policy angle, as in the shocks that the government may itself introduce in the management of the revenues and all of that. That's what I'm talking about there, because we don't want to hear one day that just like the operations of BOSS was giving us a headache, or Tor was giving us a headache, this has also become one of the things that have become another enterprise for people to make money and then settle into debt. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Very well. So Dennis, interesting perspective introduced by Bauer to the discussion. So you think that the gold for oil is a thing? He is saying that a big chunk of our requirement or demand for dollar has been taken out because of debt restructuring. We are not really servicing debt, external debts especially. So there's no pressure to look for dollars, and you know about the demand and supply. So there is no pressure on the dollar. That accounts for the stability of the cedi, rather than the gold for oil that yourself and your government has been trying to make us believe.
So, you know, one of the things about economists, I mean, I'm not an economist though. One of the things about economists is that you can always analyze the situation and make your points look good.
But
the reality, no, there is always a way around it. But the reality is always there.
So same
First
for
of
you
all-
too.
first of
Same,
all-
same for
no,
Dr.
no, so
Bawumia
the
too.
reality, the data would show.
But he's
these
also
things.
referring to data.
No, he just said it. He just said because we are not paying something, it is not happening.
No, but that's significant. If 80% of
What
our
are the
revenue,
figures? What are
if
the figures?
80%
What
of
is
our
the-
revenue will go into debt servicing,
Let me come to the point. So the point is that first of all, when you go to the Reuters platform, there's an exchange for gold and oil.
Okay.
It's there, and there's a pricing arrangement for that. And indeed, even here in Ghana, in the local market, you'd realize that the Goyles, the Star Oils, and those who are playing in the gold for oil space are the market leaders in terms of pricing. You may have very few isolated, small marketing companies who are doing a bit slightly lesser than them, and because for them it has to do with operational cost, the fact that they can come down in terms of profit margins and all of that. But the players in the gold for oil today in Ghana are the price market leaders. That is fact. The Star Oil, the Goyles, and the rest. And again, even those who are not playing in the gold for oil space are benefiting from the gold for oil because it's reduced their need for forex because of the stability that is created. No matter how you analyze the situation, a certain 10% of our 20% demand for forex every month has been taken away. That is something that we just need to admit. We have agreed that there's a certain 295,000 metric tons fuel that has come to the country, forming 50% of our demand. What it means is that a certain $200 million that we go to scramble for, we are no longer looking for it. Don't forget, when it comes to the gold for oil transaction, there is no forex losses because BOST doesn't need to look for dollar. Once you take the gold out, you are coming into the country with oil. Whether you gave it to somebody, the person bought it in dollars, and the person paid for the oil for you, you come into the country with oil. And then you sell in cedis. When you sell in cedis, you don't convert it back into dollars.
You buy the gold.
It's a huge, significant difference. You don't convert. So you see, all those who are not doing gold for oil, after the sale of their fuel, they now have to go and look for dollar to buy. And so as you are all chasing for the dollar, it's increasing the value of the dollar. But today, about 50% of the people who are transacting that business are no longer chasing the dollar with the rest. So that pressure is off. What they do is that once they bring the oil into the country, you sell in cedis. You use the cedis to buy gold in cedis. So long as the demand of the dollar has gone down from that space, it is going to have an impact on the dollar rate. Of course, that is not the only thing that will impact dollar or forex exchange. Nobody has said that. Why? It could even be that we are having a few other products that we were importing that now we reduce its importation. So many other factors would impact
the
it.
debt restructuring.
Exactly. It could be so many things. So nobody is arguing that. But it is completely unfair. And of course, double standard for somebody to say, because we are not servicing foreign debt, that is why exchange rate is coming down. And not because a certain $200 million is not being sought after. I mean, where do you do this kind of analysis? And that's why I told you, economists can always make the argument to make them look good. That $200 million, where is it? Where is it? Why isn't Honorable Bauer speaking about that $200 million? Why is he making that $200 million looks as if it doesn't matter? There is a certain $200 million that we look for every month that gold for oil has taken away. And that is fact, Helom. That is something that we must admit. And as a result of that, the forward exchange rate that used to be 19 cedis in November, October, is now 14 cedis. And could even go lower, so long as the stability of the cedi continues. Because if I am a trader and I realize that, the way the things are looking, it looks like we can stay at 12 cedis for a bit. So I can just bring my things and come and sell it at 12 cedis.
Very well.
And I won't suffer losses.
Very well.
Ultimately, it is the Ghanaian user or the beneficiary who benefits. Now, he mentioned an issue, and I think I want to take a few of them. He mentioned an issue about the difference in one of the things that is taken out of gold for oil is the issue of letters of credit, which the others have to get. And immediately you go for an LC from a bank, that brings you an additional cost. And you factor it into your cost of doing business, which will reflect in your pricing. And so there are so many things that the gold for oil has taken away from all the factors that build up into the pricing of gold and into the demand for dollar in this country.
Very
and
well.
it's a significant $200 million
Very
and
well.
still growing.
Very well.
So long as
so
we
Dr.
have
Bawumia
agreed,
has said that by
so
end
long
of
as
year,
we have
they
agreed,
want to see if
so long as we have
100%.
agreed, so long as we've agreed that a certain 50% of the supply
But
of
that
our oil,
50%.
but I've given you,
yes.
I've even given you the cargoes.
Yes, but we have
No,
to,
no,
we
he
have to
doesn't
look
have
at-
it.
Yes, we
I
have to
am
look
not,
at that
and
again.
I won't fault him if he doesn't have it.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, no
I won't
problem.
fault him.
So
But a certain $200
yes.
million.
It's been taken
It's
off
been taken
from-
out.
yes.
So whether we
So
are not
that's
servicing debt,
50%.
whether we are not servicing debt, whether we are not importing certain things, whether we are not,
So we
it
should
still
factor
remains
that.
that
We
a
should
certain
factor that.
$200 million.
Very well. We
is
take
at
a short
play.
break. We take a short break. We are looking at the matter of the road, the good for oil. Dennis Abuaji and government are strenuously arguing that the stability of the cedi we can attribute to the good for oil program because some 50% of the pressure for the search of dollar is gone off because of the good for oil. On the other hand, Bawa, Edward, MP, Bongo, is also saying that it is not just that. There are bigger issues about the debt restructuring. We are no more servicing external debt, and we service external debt using dollars.
How much is
and
that?
Because that dollar, pressure for dollar to service external debt is gone, that really should be the real factor that is influencing the stability of the cedi. Interesting points. We'll take a quick break, return, and we'll talk to Duncan Amoah, who is the Executive Secretary of COPEC. What do we care as consumers at all about all of this? Is it not the case that what we want to see is that the price of fuel at the pumps are reduced, whether it is good for oil or exchange rate or external debt servicing? We'll look at all of that when we return. Don't go away.
City TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and StarTimes box. City TV, it's your world.
You're welcome back to the big issue. Interesting discussion so far. We're looking at good for oil and what the impact has been so far. Government thinks that it's doing very well, and Dr. Bawumia indeed has said that good for oil is the most important macroeconomic policy intervention to deal with exchange rate issues. Government has said some 50% of pressure on the dollar for procurement of fuel products has been taken up because some close to 300,000 metric tons, which is about half of the required fuel products we have used in the last 2 months, have come from good for oil, essentially taking up 50%. Edward Bawa, who is on the Energy Committee of Parliament and been at the Energy Ministry for a while, is saying that no, that's really not the case because we are not servicing external debt because of the debt restructuring. That is really the reason. Franklin has looked at that. Franklin has introduced another one about the pricing, etc. But COPEC is Duncan Amoah is the executive director of COPEC. COPEC, they talk for the petroleum consumers, the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers. But executive secretary, what we care about as consumers really is that when we drive to the filling station, we get fuel which is cheaper and which is good and quality. Duncan, what's your thinking? Does it matter whether it is debt restructuring money that is affecting the stability of the exchange rate, or it's good for oil? Does it matter at all to us as consumers where the fuel comes from?
Ghanaian public, whatever the factors that may be, that drives down prices. We would be happy to wake up and to even see pump prices come back to 3 Ghana cedis a liter one fine morning anytime soon. However, our source of concern will be to the extent to which we now forget the very important things that need to be done to sustain the downstream, and then bank all our hopes on policy whose output, if you do the numbers, clearly much to write home about at this point. I'm talking of how much gold for oil would have contributed this far if you input that into how much you have consumed this far. You would realize that there's really a bigger picture out there that says the private markets, the BDCs, are still delivering almost 90% of market. Gold for oil so far has done 3 cargoes. First one in February, that was about 40,000 metric. The second one came in, later February and March, metric tons, and another 40,000. Within that period, just between January and March, by the time March comes to an end, you would have consumed in excess of 1 million metric tons. Gold for oil so far would have delivered just about 100,000 and more metric tons. Yet, we would now want to shift focus from the 90% contribution by the private sector and say that, we have brought in 3 cargoes through BOST, and so let's pat ourselves in the back. Shalom. Alternatively, international market prices are declining at this time. In fact, if you look at the price of finished products, that used to be around $1,300 for diesel last year, August. You are looking at $800, $700 a metric now. That's a whooping decline of $500 between August and now. Yet, when we want to do analysis, we go on to say that, since gold for oil came, we've been able to reduce fuel prices from 23 Ghana cedis to 12 Ghana cedis. That is an overstretch. It is not true. The truth is that gold for oil would have contributed something to the market. But if there's a reason prices are declining, it cannot be entirely true that there's a gold for oil that is why prices are declining. As I speak with you, Shell Total have declared that they cannot be party to any cargo that whose source they do not know. And so they are not definitely selling your gold for oil. Their prices have declined. There are a good number of OMCs who have equally not taken any consignment gold for oil, yet have reduced their prices. So there is certainly a bigger picture out there influencing fuel prices as we speak. And that is what we want the Bank of Ghana to focus attention and resources on. What are these factors, Salom? You recall somewhere in October last year, the Bank of Ghana came out to declare that it was going to strictly apply the limited forex we have to essential importation. Essential importation, you are looking at petroleum, pharmaceuticals, and a few other important stuff that we don't produce or manufacture locally, but the people would need. When that was done, the Bank of Ghana went ahead to auction dollars and then found a way to also work on the cedi's depreciation. So between November, December, petrol prices declined in this country by almost 30%. That was the time you were dealing with the highs of about 23, and then it had to now drop to about 18, 15, 17. Yet, Shalom, that ingenious intervention by Bank of Ghana is being thrown into the bin. We are now scrambling for, a trading effect or policy from BOST to think that, once BOST is trading, they can cushion the market. Look, BOST was not set up to trade. And I will repeat this. If we do not call BOST to do what the act that set it up in 93 insisted it should do, we would simply now be flooding the space with government getting into the business of doing business. And you and I know how inefficient government is when it comes to doing business. There are quite a lot of revealing things as far as this gold for oil transactions are concerned. But I'm not sure, for the benefit of time, we can discuss all of that. But all I'm saying in a nutshell is that there is a bigger picture. There is a lot happening globally that has seen fuel prices decline. Crude that you had trading around 97 is currently around 66, 67. Finished products that were trading around 1,200 is currently trading around 700. There's a bigger picture out there. The city that probably was depreciating so fast, BOG is able to find some magic to it November, December, when a single cargo for gold for oil had not dropped. So maybe we should focus and ensure that at this point when cargo prices are dropping, declining, we find a suitable use for BOST. You buy product and stock up so that tomorrow and metric ton price has moved from 700 to 1,000. Boss can say, look, I have enough product to sell 750 because I bought it at 700. That is what you would expect the intervention from Boss to be like. Not when Boss is busy competing with private capital, where we have gone to sit at the table in 2015 to say that we cannot continue subsidizing petroleum products as a Ghanaian government. So let's deregulate, let the market forces demand supply, take care of prices. Then we are now saying, if you listen to the vice president, that we are looking at BOST doing almost 100% of market. We are tired of deregulation. There's a better way to review it than to now use BOST to stem the market and think that because BOST is out there trading, fuel prices will decline. I'm afraid the numbers we have, if you input the gold for oil cargo that we have brought into what you have still consumed, a good number of oil marketing companies who don't buy from gold for oil have also reduced their prices. So it cannot be true that gold for oil is the reason.
Thank you so much, Duncan. Thank you so much.
Prices
I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. I think the discussion will have to continue. Thank you so much. But let me bring in Bawa for just a minute. Bawa, put everything together for us. Okay, so we don't have Bawa. Bawa made some good points. Franklin, the conversation is almost ending. What would be your final words, really? We should hasten slowly. Franklin too is going. Okay, so I'm left with Dennis. Your gods have worked. Your gods have worked. So I mean, the point really is there's also the fear that government is crowding out the private sector and government is seeking to do business. Indeed, the point about BOST is not really doing what it has to be doing. Strategic reserves, etc. That's BOST's job. Now we're using BOST as a player in the market. That's a concern for the private persons, etc. What is the assurance that this talk about middlemen, etc. in the process will not affect the pricing when it comes down here?
Because the government announced that the price hikes in fuel was unsustainable and that we didn't want to find ourselves in situations like Kenya and Nigeria where they had a fuel crisis and all of that. And so there was the need to intervene. The president announced that something was going to be done about it. Gold for oil was designed to deal with exchange rate issues. At the moment, it has succeeded to do that.
Very well.
No. So if Duncan says that others who are not doing gold for oil are reducing, yes, they are reducing because they are no longer using 19 cedis to $1 as foreign exchange. Now they are using 14 cedis, so they can afford to reduce.
Very well.
But what is true is that gold for oil is bringing in fuel that is not purchased with dollar, fuel that is cheaper, because there are other components like letters of credit and stuff that have been taken out. And the Ghanaian user who is buying through Star Oil, Gold Oil, and all the other institutions that are buying from Gold for Oil are getting it at a cheaper rate. And as a result of that, the forex has stabilized, which has enabled those who are not doing Gold for Oil to also be able to get forex at a lower rate and to also continue to also reduce their prices. This is a very simple matter.
Dr. Bawumia talks too quickly. So the issue about the exchange rate when you guys came to power, said they had locked up the city, giving the key to the IGP. It was the early days and it was fine. And now the city started galloping. Now he was nowhere to be found. This is a new policy. It has started generating some frenzy and good news. Quickly, he goes ahead to talk that it is the single most important macroeconomic intervention, blah, blah, blah. Shouldn't he?
Is he not the one who announced? Is he not the one who announced when we're in difficulty with price at 23 cities that he was going to?
What the problem?
He was there. He was the one. It was during the problem that he came to announce. It was during the problem at 23 cities that he came to announce that we should relax. That is, they are putting in place an intervention, and that intervention is bearing fruit. But let me make a final point. For those who are saying that the government should not take credit, when the challenges begin to come, They shouldn't come and point fingers to government.
Thank you. So this is how we conclude today's edition of the program. My name is Salom Adonu. My guests have been Franklin Kujo, Edward Bauer, Duncan Amoa, and then Dennis Abuaji. Thank you so much for doing the listening. Catch you again same time next week. Bye-bye.